Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining. Welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nomads of all ages, Metaverse nomads, thank you for joining us today for our 51st episode, if I believe. Right? Yep. Okay. 51st episode. And we do have a special guest who is to join, maybe in a while. And if not, we're going to continue as we always do, no matter what happens here on the show. So, how's it going, everybody? How are you, Jess?
I'm going well. I got a kind of a starter question for folks that are joining us in the comments there. I'm curious to know, and this goes for you guys too. Like, what's the last game you guys played? For me, I've been digging back into Going Medieval. It's a game I shared with Fancy Hat some time back, and that game just has legs and playability. And we're all gamers, but a lot of times we don't talk about like what are we playing right now. So that's what I'm playing right now. Going Medieval.
Yeah, I hopped on Stellaris just recently, but before that, I was just playing Super Smash Bros. I love the intensity and the excitement of just uh, ranking up.
Nice.
And besides that, a Web3 game, Axie Infinity. So the version 3 is pretty entertaining, and there's a lot to do there. So that's what I've been doing as of late.
Hey guys,
But,
yeah,
yeah,
I've
just,
gone back to my comfort game, League of Legends. Been at it for a while. Take time off here and there, but yeah, it would always be there, I reckon.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I guess it's been a productive week across the board, even though the bear market is amongst us. And I think there's a lot to look forward to as well. There's been a lot more communication across the board with teams from different projects. One of them being Star Atlas, and I'm sure if you're interested in any other games, you've probably heard some crazy developments taking place as well as demos of particular games. So we'll be covering one of those more popular ones here, just for our general news coverage of games. But the main segment will be on Star Atlas, as it usually always is. But let's cover some general news. I guess let's share a screen here, and by all means, if there's something that stands out, share your opinions and thoughts, and let me know if you see my screen. Because I'm on one screen right now. I do have my laptop.
Yeah, I added it in.
Cool. A little ghetto setup here, but got to make do what we have. But yeah, I think this is worth noting again. I don't know if it was on June 22nd that this popped out, but Spotify adds NFT gated options for online retailers. And last week it was mentioned that Reddit was hopping into the space. And there's a lot of talk of and how it's worded in ways where NFT isn't used. So these mainstream publications, Decrypt is one in the Web3 space. Um, I wanted to look up some statistics with how big Shopify was because when we talk about adoption, this is a major component to that, right? Traditional companies getting into the space that have a lot of viewer and activity depending on what they do. So here we have some notable bullet points for the top visited 1 million websites. 2.6% of them are Shopify websites. And then top 100K websites is 2.91%, and then top 10K websites is 4.45%. So Spotify has more than 3 million active websites. So as far as adoption is concerned, them talking and mentioning NFTs in any way, and then also integrating it into their website is going to help with that as far as adoption is concerned. So yeah, not to go too crazy into every statistic here, but Shopify is known and worldwide as a go-to. And so I just thought it was pretty interesting to note that everyone's coming around. No, it doesn't matter. There's going to be a huge timeline, and on that timeline, you're going to have major companies from the traditional world just jumping in, and it'll continue to happen. But yeah, what do you guys think about Spotify? Any thoughts specifically?
Or Shopify? Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
Shopify, right.
Shopify it has over the years become that go-to off-the-shelf e-commerce storefront for a lot of people. I've helped a lot of clients over the years get set up on Shopify. So it is interesting to see that they are looking to integrate NFT as a gateway. My question is in what is exactly going to be the application? So and I'm trying to see if you've got anything here that mentions it. So for example, let's say that you have an NFT in your wallet that is verifiable through this gateway for Shopify, then it only allows those people to make certain purchases, or have they gone as far as to, if you have this NFT verifiable, then all of a sudden it entitles you to a discount? I mean, I'm curious to see different ways that they use this.
Right. So, yeah, what is it? I could just read off this right here. So, what does this matter? And to what you were saying for why in the first place, and what you're able to do, it means that the future, it means that the further the Web3 shopping about exclusivity, and while NFTs often are oversimplified as digital art, JPEGs, these unique blockchain tokens are that signify ownership over an asset, are increasingly being used as membership passes. So, I'm sure that there's going to be something of the sort where you're going to be having exclusive discounts. But again, it says token holders connect your crypto wallet to unlock exclusive shopping experiences. So what those are, it doesn't go into detail, but from early access drops to limited collections of one. So I guess that would be, the beginnings of having this token gated shopping experience, which will expand upon. But
what's going to come on the heels of that is, as soon as they can associate digital wallets and NFTs within with certain online transactions, then next will come targeting and retargeting of offers that are specific to people that have those NFTs.
Yeah, and it looks like they're in good hands. They got Doodles, World of Women, some relevant names in the space, Cool Cats NFTs. So as far as what the team and what's being built behind the scenes, I think it'll be a success from what I just know about these projects in particular. So
one way that it could be used, here's an example. So let's say that Star Atlas decided that it wanted to use a gated NFT storefront. So that means that any Star Atlas NFT, be it a ship, something like that, if you have X number of ships, or if you're a poster holder. So if you have a poster, they might say, hey, you can go to the store and you can buy a Star Atlas tee, but the only way you can access that cart is if you can show that you have a digital wallet that has certain Star Atlas NFTs in it. So that's one of the ways that I could see it being applied.
Right. Yeah, the gamification of it all is going to just be an interesting thing to see who does it a bit different to garner the most attention. But yeah, I'll continue on. I'll skip the GameStop stuff because, Fancy, I think you mentioned you were going to talk about it.
I have some slides, but it's quite relevant now, so I don't mind.
All right, let's go.
Yeah, so GameStop, they launched their NFT marketplace this week, and yeah, it's only been out a while, but it's gotten quite a lot of action already compared to stuff like Coinbase NFT, which this article here talks about. It's already surpassed that. And yeah, the GameStop marketplace isn't even offering gaming NFTs yet. This is, I'm not sure, just profile pictures, things like that.
Right.
But they do have a lot of things coming soon, especially with Immutable X, who they've partnered with, I believe. Looks interesting.
Yeah, they have a great diversification of games there for what's coming. I personally like more than half of those games. So
yeah, and power to the players, Swagner, watch out.
Yeah, so that's another thing. The slogan of "Power to the People" that Wagner is usually talking about after any interviews or Twitter Spaces. We got GameStop here. Power to the players. So I don't know, some competition there, maybe not.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah, but
yeah,
I could
competition and more name brands coming into the space, like Shopify.
Yeah. One thing of note before we go on, for those of you who see this sexy new PFP that Fancy Hat's rocking there, just a little backstory on that. I don't know if you want to share it, but you've seen on past shows how we talked about AI creating art. Well, that is AI generated. Do you want to share a bit more on that, Fancy Hat?
Yeah, I'm just going to load up so I can actually show it to you. I don't have any searches left this month, but I can show all the things I've created. So you give it a basic just prompt. So whatever you want, you can type in with filters or a setting or a background. It's all about what the AI can recognize from the words and recreate, and it offers you different styles of just interpreting what they have, like upscaling it, making variants of it, and you can create some very cool things. For example, if you see this one here, they're all with the same prompt, but they all look slightly different because it's recreating it with that input.
How many variations did you look at as a whole before you landed on that one that you like?
I was just going for the fanciest hat, really.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's what the majority of mine are, and yeah, I'm happy with it.
Very
There's
cool.
Axie on fire here. Yeah. Midjourney,
I guess there would.
check it out.
Yeah, Midjourney is definitely the place to go. I like the quality of what is generated versus DALL-E. And yeah, I dabbled with it myself. I got a particularly interesting PFP for future use when it comes to Rome. So it was fun. But yeah, I think continuing on our journey of news, there was something that stood out to me too. Disney is all over the place and is joining up here with Polygon. So you might have seen this. If you haven't, well, here you go. The leading cryptocurrency by market value is up 5% on the day, 20,000 Ether. Second largest crypto gain 10% to roughly 1,200, which is Ethereum. But it goes into how Matic is the place to be for quicker transactions. We got the charts, but Disney is definitely getting its hands in to. From what I read, not sure yet. Again, all of this is relatively early for any of these companies, but they're partnering with people who know what they're doing to the extent where they will be successful. So we'll have to. If anybody else read anything or followed up, it was just major headlines.
I think watching crypto news lately is fascinating. I mean, obviously, we've seen that, that Bitcoin itself has found some support around 20, even though it's, dipped a little bit lower. We talked about last week how El Salvador scooped up another 80 Bitcoin. So obviously, some of the developing countries that are leaning in that direction are still bullish on it. And then when you think about, if you remove all of the hype from crypto, which is, when bear markets come and we see that dip down, what still remains is the underlying technology. And that stuff is exciting. And this is the time where projects dig in and start doing their stuff, which is pretty cool. And then at the same time, we see crazy things going on with fiat currency. I don't know if you guys saw the news here recently, but for someone that's an American living in Europe, it was interesting to see that now the dollar and the euro are even for the first time in 20 years. So, and then of course, we've even seen the same kind of dip with the British pound. So it's interesting just how much fiat can be manipulated, and all the more reason why we absolutely can see value and benefit from what's happening in crypto and blockchain. So it's just interesting to watch all of this news and things unfold in these interesting times.
Yeah, it's pretty ironic how there's so much corruption or scams taking place within Web3 and crypto. But if you take a step back and you actually learned as much as you did about the monetary policy of your country and of the world, you would be just as or even more surprised about what's going on. And I'm not the expert myself, but you do enough rabbit hole traveling going downwards, and it's nothing but shocking, I'd say.
Indeed.
So it's the tip of the iceberg here with Web3, anything Web3 crypto related. So yeah, well, who knows about Tony Hawk, the most famous and most successful skateboarder? Just to bruise through these.
Yeah, he's that guy everyone thinks looks like Tony Hawk.
Right. He is also partnering with the Sandbox here, so it's a interesting development, but not shocking. And we have Tony Hawk is entering the world of NFTs with the biggest skate park in the metaverse. So he's going to be building out just like Snoop Dogg did whole skate park for those who want to take part.
You know what blows me away by this is that Tony Hawk is still to this day the iconic and legendary face of skateboarding. Like if you ask for one single name when it comes to skateboarding, Tony Hawk's name will come up. But the dude's 54. It's amazing that he is still associated with boarding. I would have thought by now there would have been like a couple of others, kind of like Wayne Gretzky with ice skating, but or hockey. But it's interesting that still to this day, he's the guy you think of.
Yeah, he actually, there's a quote here. He goes on to say, "I have been a fan of new technology for all my life, from the first video game and home computers with CGI capabilities. So I'm fascinated by the metaverse and excited to bring our culture into the virtual landscape of the Sandbox," Hawk said in the press release. And what it consists of, as far as like the partnership, is a collaboration with NFL star Tom Brady's sports-focused NFT platform, the Autograph, which came out months ago, I guess the beginning of, or end of last year. I remember it became a headline like this one, and it will include a collection of digital avatars with that players will be able to buy on the platform, as well as access to the virtual skate park where they'll be able to skate with other players. So for all you skating fans, you got some place to go in the metaverse to skate now.
Yeah, I've seen some
cool.
cool new electric wheels, which is kind of like the new skateboard, I guess. Like we're also talking about technology here. So this is a clip I was watching earlier today.
Nice.
Oh yeah, nice.
A lot of power in that little thing.
What? That's insane. Yeah.
He's probably about 160 pounds, I'd say. 150 to 160.
About $2,000.
I'm getting
Are
one.
you talking about weight pounds?
Yeah, as far as his body weight is concerned.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
Definitely.
Right. And then onwards, I think another notable company and brand you might know is the Playboy. So Playboy to launch the first meta mansion in the Sandbox. So Sandbox is on a roll here. And I just thought about the kids. So the first thing that came to mind was Sandbox is children. That's what I feel like it appeals to the most, because it's almost just like Minecraft. Although yeah, go ahead.
But they're kind of Sandbox an interesting place, and we've talked about this. I think that while Roblox is still not really truly considered in the blockchain space, what they're doing is primed for it, and they own the space when it comes to kids under the age of 16. In fact, the majority of their demographic is under the age of 13. And so I always look at that as like they're grooming them and getting them a learned behavior early on. So maybe with Sandbox, because of the pixelation, it kind of looks like Minecraft. But yeah, I always think of Roblox first when I think of the under 16 demographic. But also remember, Playboy did do an NFT, or at least someone licensed Playboy to do an NFT, because that's something that Bonafide, he ended up grabbing one or two of those.
Yeah, he did. And unfortunately, the price since so it says at the time of writing, the floor price for the Rabbitars NFT on OpenSea sits at 0.19 Ethereum, or roughly $206, making it 74% decrease since the launch in October. But that, that's because overall market's down. But I guess as the market goes back up and more marketing is done, I guess there's a place for everything in the space.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sandbox, another partnership there. No surprise. But
that's a good point, Grist, for sure, that, Roblox model seems to be very much like what we're starting to see from Meta and what we've seen from Apple in the past, where they want to own the platform and give developers just a small piece and keep the rest for themselves. So yeah, things that lean towards decentralized and open source are definitely, at least in my opinion, the way to go as well.
Absolutely. And so on to more broader news, but some news that actually helped with the beginnings of the bear market on a macro scale was Celsius, and they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and we were able to now peer into the order books of how the company had and what they didn't have, and it's totaling to $4.7 billion that the crypto lender Celsius owes to users, and that's a pretty big penny there. And I think that with all this taking place, hopefully that with the Mt. Gox situation, even though it took close to 10 years or 8 for people to get their money back, there's some type of restructuring that can take place, or rebranding, and then maybe a claims that people can have and file. So maybe retrieve some of theirs, at least 50%, if not 100%, because that's a lot of money.
So based on that, then, do we think there is going to be more scrutiny on companies like Tether, for instance, where for a long time there was a lot of concern about whether or not they had the assets to back, to back what they're doing? And I've heard recently that someone suggested that they have. I'm not up on it at all, but it just seems to me that when a company like that has so much extended to what could totally wreck a lot of people, is more scrutiny good? Because I mean, I don't know. I'm on the fence, because I always still like the idea that, things can best be handled through smart contracts on blockchain, rather than all of a sudden you have these companies that are now filing, bankruptcy and leaning on traditional court systems. It's like that seems to be steering away from what smart contracts were originally designed to do, be trustless.
Right. So personally, I never thought that we were going to be decentralized completely forever. And I think that it's what I welcome it, because there needs to be something of a foundation for the masses that are in the traditional space to stand on, when it comes to this, especially taxes, because that's where everyone's problems lie. How do I file, and what do I need to do to optimize for everything that I've either gained or lost? So there is some legislation that was written. I forget the name of it now, but in the United States recently, I think within this past week, and I read a Twitter post or a thread that kind of listed the pros and cons. So I guess that was one of the things I skipped out on. But yeah, I guess a Google search could look up the names probably. But yeah, definitely legislation, and we need some legislation. And I'm not calling for centralized everything, but we do know how the government creeps further and further into our personal lives, and I'm not totally supportive of that at all. So I guess with time we'll see. But the more of this happens, the more that this happens in the space, where I think this is the equivalent to Lehman Brothers in 2008 when the housing market crashed. Like this is like the worst I think that it could ever be, and hopefully we're nearing the bottom. There's some calls for further downward pressure with a lot of other things happening, but um, it'll only help the majority of people in the world, I guess, or depending on your country, if there's some type of legislation.
Wasn't there some mention of one of the big financial institutions? It was like JP Morgan or someone that was looking to bail them out of this at some point.
Yeah, so Binance and FTX and also some traditional banks took a look. We're taking looks at what they were on paper as far as the health of the company, and there was just huge gaps of like $1.5 billion plus that wasn't accounted for, and it needed. I guess it wasn't addressed until we had this, bankruptcy Chapter 11, where now it's out in the public and everyone can see what it is for what it is. So yeah, they weren't saved by the central bank of Sam Bankman-Fried and or Binance with CZ.
Yeah, I was more curious of why some of those companies would look to bail them out. Like, what was in it for them? Like, what were they seeing? Like, what was the win for them in doing that? Because we know it wasn't out of the kindness of their heart. There was obviously some win scenario that they got something for it, and I just never understood what that was.
I could tell you this: the community, the Celsius Army, was by far the largest compared to any other centralized or decentralized project. So for any other reason, it might have been that for the marketing, and then also the name, if it was salvageable, as far as maybe with a little rebranding. But but I think it was by far just the community, and the potential of just getting into the space and having a foundation to start with a rebrand, and to market it differently than what it was used for initially, maybe. But yeah,
have you
community
guys
was real big.
have you used their service ever? Anything like that?
Yeah, I had some funds on there actually. So nothing compared to what I have on other platforms in the
Yeah.
decentralized space, but yeah, it was smooth. It was no complaints really. It was just Alex, who was the CEO. He was the one basically being the accountant for all of the funds, and we put our trust in him apparently because he was the one making all these decisions, which ultimately ended negatively.
So during the bull, I did something, I believe it was with Ave first, and that was just a weird experience because I ran into some trouble and something got stuck, and then eventually got worked out. And that was my first experience of, wow, you can do loans, but there's not really any support. So that's like you're kind of on your own kind of thing. And then later I did one with Celsius, and that too, it felt a lot easier. The process was smoother, but in both cases, I just kind of felt like, man, I've got funds locked up here. The interest rate was great. I could use those funds to further do things that I wanted to do during the bull market, but it was just still weird that my funds were locked up somewhere. And so then I just didn't sit with me, and I'm like, I'm done with that, paid it off and pulled it all back.
Yeah. I never really liked doing those types of things. I see the benefit of doing that. You leverage other people's money or your own, and then you build upon it. But I just think it's still too early. And, I dabbled in it with small amounts myself. Ave, I started as well as the first. But soon after that, I guess it was during the times of just everything going up, 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 where it's just like, why do that? Why take the risk of locking your money up when you can move it around and make more somewhere else with just the appreciation of what was happening at the time during the bull market? So,
my kind of logic in that is like, I was thinking like with Bitcoin and Ethereum and some of the other top cap coins, that it's like, you know what, I'm hodling that anyway, so let me put it to work. That's kind of what my thinking was. But then still, I just felt weird when I had it in there locked up. It's like,
yeah. And at the time, I guess Ledger and Trezor, I'm not so much sure about Trezor, but on the Ledger side, now you're able to stake more of those types of tokens that you would never able to do before, and earn those rewards for those passive holdings you have. And it's way less riskier. So I like how everything is coming along too with that in mind. I guess rewarding people who are holding the tokens for projects in a safer way.
Mr. T, that was my sentiment exactly. Not my keys, not my crypto.
Number one rule. But yes, some good news. The money is still in the space, and it doesn't mean that we're down and out. So Anabolica Brands, one of the biggest game developers, but also funds, I would say, hits a $5.9 billion valuation as crypto winter deepens. So we have blockchain game maker and crypto investor Anabolica Brands has secured $75 million in a funding round that values Hong Kong-based company at $5.9 billion. So investors of the round include existing backers of Liberty City Ventures, Kingsway Capital, 10T. I'm not sure of these names. I haven't even looked into them yet, but I can only imagine the trust and the confidence that they have to do such a thing with that amount of money. So Anabolica Brands has always been around, funded a lot of projects. When you look at partnerships, they're always there. So it goes to show that there's still something to look forward to in the space if you're not really keeping your ear to the ground with what's taking place as far as developments.
They seem to have their hands in everything that's crypto in the space. And so my question, and I don't know enough about their history, and maybe some of you watching, or maybe even this, Ray, like, what were their biggest wins that where they really did well? I mean, obviously they were a big part of Axie, but what is that? Were there other projects where they did really well during the bull market? Because even during the bull, and then now even in the bear, any new project that seems newsworthy, you look at their partners, you see Anabolica everywhere.
Yeah, I think it simply is that where they were ahead of their time. I haven't kept up with them as I do with any particular game that I'm invested in personally, but I, for a fact, always saw their name, and their connections run deep into the space, even back in 2018 when there were hardly any NFT games that were being developed or even playable. So they must have had some great foresight to just put down and raise enough. So the origin story of Anabolica Brands, I'm not totally aware of, but all I know is that they have influenced the space, and I think they've done some things along the lines of education as well, which really put them ahead of other companies as they were also starting up off the tailcoats of the success of either a Web3 game or Anabolica Brands themselves. But yeah, like they're just in every project. So you plant those seeds across every project, and if 9 out of 10 might fail, but that one is the one that you make all your money back. Essentially, it's to scale. So what they were doing is more or less what we were doing as individuals with these NFTs for particular games, with us thinking, or tokens, with us thinking that we would make a get rich quick type of situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's piquing my interest more now to just jump in and dig deep. So I'll do that myself. But yeah, this is a point that I wanted to make with the community here on the live. Is like, there's no question. This is from what he's saying. There's no question that the fundraising environment has become more challenging, but at the same time, the current crypto climate has also enabled more users to gain a better entry point to the open metaverse. So Yatsu, co-founder of chairman Anabolica Brands, said in an email, "Of course, we have to be a bit more prudent, but we have a long-term vision for the space, and we are both committed and patient." So there's a lot to take away in that little paragraph, where if you're out there trying to raise money or starting, you really just can't go off anything that took place last year when it was all WAGMI and GM, and even the phrasing of words and things that attract money as far as investors are concerned. There needs to be a reworking of that. And I personally experienced this topic of conversation in NFT NYC, and then also with our founding members here of Rome, as we have conversations with people outside behind the scenes. And it's just like, even our guest today, hopefully he's able to reach out. I know it's 1 p.m. in the Philippines, 1 a.m. in the Philippines, where he's located right now. But Garvey, who is the director of student education at Twitch, we had a call off just last week, and he was saying it's a different landscape now when it comes to fundraising, investors, and the type of money that you'll be able to get. But it's still possible, as you can see. So it's pretty interesting stuff there.
Yeah,
and then,
I agree. Do you have any more stories, Ray?
No, that's about it. I'm pretty good.
Perfect. So this week there was the first trip for Other Side, and we have some footage, a 2-minute video explaining like the basic concepts, and then we can play a bit more footage, which we'll talk over ourselves.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, this is Curveline Films, and today we're checking out Other Side Metaverse and their first tech demo called First Trip. Now this game was made by Yuga Labs, the same company behind the Bored Ape Yacht Club. To enter, you need to own an Other Deed plot and connect your wallet for verification. Now in the Infinite Expanse, we meet a giant bored ape that would be our guide to the other side. We also learn all the controls to play the game, and we get our first look at a coda correctly color named Blue. And then this happened.
Voyagers, see you on the other side.
Let's go!
Oh, let's do this!
Yeah.
In that moment, we finally get to see our first look at the other side. Now, this area is called the Swamp, which is the original area of the Bored Ape Yacht Club. To get around, you use these jump pods from area to area and get through the island quicker. We made our way to the Sphere, where we would get more directions about our journey. Here we would meet our fellow voyagers, many of whom own Bored Ape or Mutant Ape NFTs. And we got a
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, might just give it a second to buffer.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And we got a surprise visit from the ship shown in the original teaser. But then our first mission started. We had to go find and save the Kodas. There have been a lot of speculation on what Kodas are, but they do seem to be the main species of this game. Maybe they'll give you missions in the future, but they seem to know a lot about the world and what's going on. After freeing the Koda, we made our way back to the Sphere while enjoying the gorgeous view. Also note there was 4,500 other people in the game with no lag at all. By far the most impressive metaverse I've seen to date. And now we make our way to the obelisk for the last part of the first voyage. With the arrival of our fearless ape leader, we start the mission.
Let's begin the mission.
Whoa, 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 hey! That's my line!
After lighting all the mini obelisks through different actions, we gathered together for a selfie and a job well done. Hearts all around. But then the evil Koda shows up and we have to defeat him. As a team, we jumped off different launch pads and hurled ourselves at the boss until our Koda friend Blue got us all together to attack at once. Now, it did take a couple of hits for the boss fight to end, but honestly, it was a lot of fun. And working as a team and seeing over 4,500 people working together to defeat a boss, that was hands down the coolest part of the day. We celebrated and talked about our coda farts, and the mission is finally over. So we all head back to the Sphere and celebrate by watching a very, 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 very short teaser of what will be next on the other side. Thanks for joining, and any questions you have, write in the comments below. Like and share and smash that plus button.
That's impressive. I mean, it really, I think that is probably one of the most evolved looks of what we think of when we like always use in Ready Player One as a point of reference. You know, I love that scene where you just see all the players coming over the hill, you know, when the call is put out. And so to see that 4,500 people show up and to have it be that lag free, I mean, there's just a tiny bit there, but it's impressive. It just gives you an idea of where we're headed.
Yeah, and shout out to curveline.eth for this video. Really nice introduction. So you do need an other side land NFT to participate, and they are quite pricey. They are 2.8 ETH floor price right now, and there is 100,000
so you're saying that
of them.
Just under $6,000 that all 4,500 people that had at least spent nearly $6,000 on NFTs.
Yeah, I assume like all the Bored Ape Yacht Club people get one, and just everything like it'll add up quick. But there is 100,000 of them, so yeah, times 2.8. That's a lot of Ethereum right there. And if you did have like a land NFT during this trip, then it upgraded after the mission was completed. So you can see that here. These are 3 example deeds, and like the top piece of it is finished now. They've done that first little mission, and as they release more of these tiers are gonna get released, upgrading the NFT as they go along.
Looks good. I think there's been a lot of time and effort and thought put into this, and for a long time there was a lot of negativity talked about with just how much money the land sale raised, which was like over 100 million. And just before that, there was a lot of talk about why aren't they just using the original 100 million plus they made off of everything Bored Ape Yacht Club. So I don't know. Maybe people are satisfied now that they raised another, because they were calling them extractors, right? The whole project, there was a lot of FUD around Bored Ape Yacht Club, and for particular reasons, there's many of them. But now we see this, and I don't know. A lot of the community sentiment is turning, I would say. I know mine is, just from being a conscious observer, not ever having a Bored Ape Yacht Club.
Right.
The consideration is there to want to be part of this experience, just for the experience, not necessarily to make any money off of anything. But this is where I see the whole place going, and every metaverse is eventually becoming this, because this is what's going to have mass appeal, in my opinion, for majority of gamers. I think this is what we always dreamed about on some level. And I see Star Atlas. Where are you? Where are you, Star Atlas? This is something where I guess the showroom would be. This would be phenomenal if you could just hop into a showroom and do something of the sort. On a much more basic level. But Improbable is a great company apparently, and maybe it's something to look into as far as Star Atlas, to see how they can help, if any help is needed or wanted, to become anything like this. So yeah, Star Atlas, check them out.
Yeah, definitely. And just this boss fight is insane. It was lasting for like 5 or I'm not sure how long actually, but all these different people participating, and then you see like the big Bored Ape, like they're just a giant. That's really cool. Yeah, and it's quite a like basic thing at the moment. Like there's almost like dungeon masters, like people talking. Let me unmute it for a second. It's quite laggy, but that's I guess.
And I liked how they did kind of, like they had that big amphitheater. So when they kind of do their version of a town hall, or they're releasing a message of some sort, they're able to do it in this environment. I think that's cool. I think that's what all the developers are working towards. We've heard Gala talk about wanting to do that, town halls in a big open space within Miranda's. Obviously, Star Atlas would be looking to do something like that within the showroom. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see application of a developer releasing information and doing somewhat of a kind of a town hall experience in a big amphitheater like they showed earlier.
Perfect.
Yeah,
And Grist is going to share some more videos from Improbable with me, and I guess we'll do another follow-up over the week.
yeah,
Cool.
sounds good.
Awesome. So,
And yeah, I guess
the big red guy in the middle. You can go on.
So a couple things when I see this here that come to mind is that for me, what we're seeing here is in many ways it's novel, meaning like this is not, I don't think it's the end all be all experience that we look forward to in the future where we can be one of, 10,000 people battling, some boss mob. What I think that it demonstrates is the fact that we're looking at a time where we're not going to be hitting a ceiling of lag for what the gameplay experience is. It'll be transparent. In other words, it won't be a thing that we have to think about because there's too many people on the screen at once. That's kind of what I think it leans towards, but I don't think it's like, it's great to see this, but I don't think everyone's looking forward to, hey, how can I battle, some boss monster with 9,999 people?
Yeah, I see like value in this being like a one-time event where it's not repeated, and like as many people try to turn up as once. But if you put it on a loop, it would get quite boring, old if you're just supposed to like jump into the big red guy in the middle.
Right.
Yeah, but it definitely has its place, and it would definitely give much more attention when any game is able and capable of doing something like this. And like I said earlier, I think this is the route that everyone's going to take. There's a lot to take away from what they're doing, and I think they're positioning themselves to be a leader, if not already in a lot of people's minds, outside of an Axie Infinity for what they did, because there's nothing else like it comparatively. So.
Yeah, I agree, and it did look great. I agree. So, yeah, that was Other Side, their first trip, and I guess we can move into Star Atlas since our guest isn't here yet.
Yeah, so Garvey has yet to reach out. Something must have happened, and I'll find out. And then, if anything, we reschedule. But I'm excited to have him on at any point for our reschedule. It's going to be a great show when it happens. So, yeah, we can move on to Star Atlas.
Speaking of schedule, we're starting to get to that place where we're actually scheduling stuff a month plus out. We've got a number of other guilds that we're going to have on here. So yeah, a lot of good shows in the lineup.
Yeah, that'd be fun. So one way we can go into Star Atlas is having a look at the new video with Michael Wagner in it, explaining the difference between the current status quo and what is upcoming in the 4 to 6 event.
Gamification saturates almost every element of your on-screen life, even if you aren't immersed in Battle Royale. The makers of Web 2 applications, vying for your service and your data, realized that gamification motivated consistent participation and long-term engagement in their users, and so embedded game elements into each and every point of industry. The makers of Web 3 are doing quite the opposite. Rather than embedding games into each and every point of industry, we're embedding each and every point of industry into our games, building new bottom-up businesses, prioritizing restlessness and equity from what results.
Yeah, I like that little series. It'd be good when we have a whole catalogue of them with loads of different questions and answers, and
Yeah. Gamification is definitely not something that's new, but it's interesting to see how it's being applied lately. But if you look at models from whether it's language learning, whether it's, I don't care if it's Uber Eats, if it's Untapped, which is, tracking craft beer, it's all about badges. It's like, what badge did you unlock? So gamification has been a big part of a lot of industries for quite some time, especially over the past 10 years. I think that's like when the past decade is when a lot of companies started looking to how can we gamify this experience to keep our community engaged and want to engage more. So it's interesting now to see how it's going to be applied at a whole nother level.
Yeah. And I think the market of education is just always going to be around, especially in the space. Like Garvey, he is the director of student education, and he has a lot of things going on. And again, we'll reschedule that. But he's a plethora of information when it comes to that, as that's what he's been doing for the last 8 years at Twitch. So whatever is going to take place as far as on the education front with Star Atlas, more power to the team and whoever they bring on to help communicate this information out to the masses, because
Right.
that's the second battle. I mean, the second battle to ultimately winning the war here when it comes to onboarding anyone is this the pipelines of information and how they're I guess shared with the world, because we're not
Right.
putting flyers under people's doors. I always use that example. We're not having flyers to join Star Atlas and going into apartment buildings and putting under people's doors. It's social media. So if it's
Right.
not social media that you're going to utilize and put marketing funds towards when the time is right, if that's what any particular team feels is what they're waiting on, with something tangible like a showroom or Stellaris top down
Yeah.
type of game. So I think it's just the right way to go, and to continue pushing in that way. Like a lot of companies during, sorry, just I know you have a thought. I just it's coming in now. A lot of companies are strapped for cash. A lot of this new money is poor now, right? So the old money is doing all these fundings of these new projects, and if you made the money and you were smart with it, you have enough. So any project that's developing now are looking at letting go and shutting down their content team because of runway, and I think that's detrimental in the long term, because you always want via algorithms to be producing constantly. So if it's any one of these social media platforms like YouTube, TikTok, or even Twitch, pick one. It's consistency that trumps, and then if the quality is there and there's education and value for people, then it just continues to grow, and you're gonna ultimately make out like a bandit, as I would say Axie Infinity did throughout a bear market.
Yeah.
So yes, go ahead, Jess.
I was just going to say that the biggest hurdle that the blockchain gaming industry is up against, and the reason that we keep talking about education, is that we're talking about how do you incentivize someone to change their behavior. The behavior right now is they play games, and they play it on Steam, they play it on console, they play it many different places. But now we're asking them to use a wallet, use crypto, learn things that are foreign to them. And the question in their mind is why? Why do I need it? What's in it for me? So we're asking them to change their behavior. I mean, I think a good example of that is like when social media came out and Facebook. Like Facebook, now it's like where everyone's mom and grandmother is, because that was the way for them to connect with their families. So that was their incentive for doing it. But now that they're on there, good luck getting your grandma to go over to TikTok or to Instagram or anywhere else. It's like, no, they went through the pain and suffering to figure out how to use Facebook, and that's where they're going to live until their dying day. They're not going to another platform. So gamification tries to incentivize people to change their behavior, to give them some reward for making that shift. And it's going to be interesting to see the different ways that companies explore how to do that. And this is one of the ways that I think that traditional game developers in the legacy space have gotten it wrong. Like we saw Ubisoft and some others where they got backlash by their community for trying to dive into the NFT space. And I've said this a number of times on the show. I think that the way that they need to approach it is to give away NFTs that may later have value later, but that is just the enticement for getting your community to establish a wallet for something that you're giving them for free, in recognition of them having been a part of your community or having done something within your community. It's a recognition and reward system before you start charging for them for this new behavior.
Yeah, it's the delayed gratification method needs to come back to this to reality. Like we have to be more rational here as the people who have been exposed to just quick gains and then NFTs that are able to appreciate so much so where you just flip and make a profit. So a lot of these companies won't last if they're just doing anything other than having multiple layers of incentivification, but over a longer period of time. That makes sense. So, white papers and roadmaps are still relevant. I still think they're important and they have their particular place in the space. Some companies don't think so. Some people think it's kind of a dead issue where let's have something tangible first and then give me a roadmap. I want to play something. But either way you look at it, you need to have a well-rounded approach, and you can't just have something playable, because that's almost the most easiest thing to do on Unity, right? We've talked on the past on shows where you can just buy particular assets and do a mock-up and have something where you can just join in, like a lot of the demos we play for either Mirandus or any other game. It's not the most world-bending thing to do. So the more you learn, I guess, about how to do things like that, the more you realize, like, hey, yeah, we have something playable as a demo, but it's nothing compared to what in 10 years we're going to be able to do. And where does that, what's happening in between now with this demo and then where the project ultimately will end up.
Yeah. I'm still of the opinion that when companies like Gala say that we don't do white papers, that is just an excuse because they don't really have anything to share. Because the truth is that if you're asking people to invest in your company and to believe in you, then your white paper or light paper, or whatever you want to call it, is your pitch deck. It's your way to share some of your critical thinking about why you're doing what you're doing and what you believe it's going to accomplish. So simply say that that's not something we do. That's a lame excuse that I don't think is going to fly anymore. And even just recently, like I have a screenshot of that even Gala Games now, they just released what they're calling a light paper for Spider Tank. So it's not something you can escape if you want people to really believe in what you're doing. We need to know what you're thinking, and that's kind of what your white paper or light paper kind of maps out.
Yeah, and maybe for the benefit of the doubt, it might be Gala Games' position to have always said this and then dump that legal or whatever the consequences of releasing something early to the developers of that actual game. So it might be the people who are developing the game with just the help of Gala with the marketing side of it, I guess, because that's what they do. They sell all the NFTs for every game that they onboard. It's going to be revealed that the developing team is thinking this, and this is what's going to happen in Q5 or Q4 of next year, and so on and so forth. So they might still have that stick to that standpoint of, we don't have one as Gala Games for our token in particular. There's nothing there. We don't believe in it. But these games in particular that we're helping with marketing, because that's all I really see. And again, we don't know the inner workings of the relationships between Gala and any of these games that are coming on board. But it would be the best thing to do for these developing games to make one, no matter what. Hopefully, Gala says, because this is what gives us as the consumers, the investors, the people who are going to spend our time in those ecosystems, in those games, the confidence to play them and then invest. Because you can't really, what else are you going to call it? It's not anything other than investing your time and energy and money. It's all the same thing.
Right.
So,
but I agree. So on the 21st of July, Thursday this week, there's going to be the 4 to 6 live event. And from the Twitter space we saw, it does seem like there is going to be quite a bit of alpha. So from a quote, 4 to 6 is a little slice of Copa. Along with these exciting releases, there's going to be additional community entertainment, including music guests and opportunity for discussion in the Atlas brew afterwards. And additionally, something big and unreal will be dropping a little bit after this event. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that is. That was taken from a quote during the live chat.
Yeah. And we're likely to stream that on here, even though every time we stream events like that, we just get beat up with copyright claims from Base Jacket and everyone else. But, it's all good. I think there's value in us streaming it because not everyone is able to access Discord and the other, distribution mediums that they've used in the past.
Yeah, I agree. Might even jump in with our own commentary during the moments where we would get striked, so it will stay up. But looking forward to it. So stay tuned this Thursday.
Yeah, for our live reaction video.
What else have we got?
So there was the ONI Times July 20.
Coexist ONI Times. Issue number 1. That's right.
So, Fancy, if you're talking, I'm not sure. I don't hear you on my end.
That's my bad. I've muted.
Oh, okay. So ONI Times.
Yeah, they release one every month, and yeah, a lot of content, about 30 pages, and 4 or 5 of them include questions with Swagner. So yeah, this first question is about how the devs view Copa, and they think it's an incredible success. They talk about all the decks and what they wanted to do and the prizes they dropped. It was interesting, but not enough to like read out completely. So what do you think of this question, guys? Is Star Atlas looking to guilds to be a primary source of growth for Star Atlas?
Actually, this is the question I was most interested in, and this is actually a question that I asked, and much appreciation to you, Lumina, for dropping this in here. And it's a big question that I think is on a lot of our minds, and that is like, what is going to be the relationship with guilds and Star Atlas? And of course, Star Atlas is making the rounds right now and speaking to the different DACs, and that's kind of how they're referring to the guilds, at least the guild participation within Star Atlas. Like, what is that relationship going to be? They're looking for ways to figure out how they can work with guilds on 2 fronts. One, what we're trying to accomplish in game, whether that be connect with their developers for creating development resources that are utilized in the game. That's one. And of course, that creates a revenue stream for the guild itself. Because let's be real, there's 2 sides to how people will participate in Star Atlas. There's player-owned assets where players show up and you have assets, and then you utilize those assets and you get rewards and missions for that. Then there's the other side where it takes a lot of guild resources. It's a full-time business to run a guild, and you need people to do it. And so the question becomes is, what is the guild reward for doing that within a game? And so Star Atlas is looking for ways to collaborate with guilds. So whether that's through taxation, that guilds are able to use their in-game resources for collaborating a bunch of players, or whether that is creating supply chains and things that are only available to guilds through the loyalty point system that Star Atlas is incorporating. So it's pretty interesting to see here. And I didn't get the gist of this, but actually, let me take a look at it. I want to read his reply here.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So the question is this: is Star Atlas looking to guilds to be a primary source of growth for Star Atlas? If so, can you share more about what the model might look like? At this time, a guild with guild-owned assets is at a significant disadvantage. Scream will not have any way for a large wallet like the club or YGG or others with large single wallet holdings to allow guild members to manage those assets. So while there seems to be a lot of focus on guilds, what is the incentive for guilds in Star Atlas? And at what stage of Star Atlas will guilds be able to earn separate or in addition to individual players? So again, that is the question. Like, what is in it for a guild or a DAC as digital autonomous corporation, which is kind of essentially what the guilds are going to be called within game. So Wagner's reply is, I would imply that we are targeting guilds to be the primary driver of growth, though we do recognize the potential DACs represent for user growth through recruiting campaigns. And we actually have a new referral program rolling out this month. It is important to us to provide infrastructure to reduce burdens DACs face in bringing new members into not only Star Atlas, but in many cases into crypto for the first time. However, we're in a challenging position in that much of the infrastructure needs to be developed, as the tooling simply does not exist in Web3 gaming or on Solana specifically. In terms of priorities, we need to ensure we focus the majority of our time on game development in the present phase. But we will look to expand resources to DAC tools as the team scales and we ship gaming products. I will note, as an aside, that these tools that need to be built offer a sizable opportunity for the community members capable of building such features. And again, were an element we wanted to showcase during COPA. The beauty of blockchain and Web3 is that these tools can be developed and integrated in a permissionless fashion into the Star Atlas ecosystem, much like the club's pit stop program, and proved to be immensely valuable to the creator. So I think a lot of this is still gray. And based on this answer, it just kind of reiterates some of the things we already know, is that there are two fronts. The first front is marketing. What is Star Atlas going to do for marketing? And there's still a lot of unknowns. I've mentioned to the Star Atlas team that I think they should be marketing now. If you are going to sell more ships and you're not marketing to grow your community, then you're putting buy pressure on your existing community, which means the value of the current assets are going to go down. So if you're going to continue to sell assets without marketing, that's not exactly fair to your existing community. So my hope was that they would look to how they can market to offset that. And one of the ways they're looking to do that now, it seems, is they're going to have a referral program. What does that look like? We don't know. Does that mean that we get loyalty points? Are those loyalty points faction based, or is that at a higher level? And then can those loyalty points for a guild be used to buy ships? What does that referral program look like? I've worked with a lot of referral programs in the past. I've actually created many referral programs and consulted on companies starting their own referral program. So I'm curious to see what this program is going to look like. So that's the one side of the equation. The other side is what are the incentives for a guild within the game? It sounds like a lot of the tools that we're looking to see if Star Atlas is going to create those, they're saying, hey, well, we could, but so could you. So that's going to be an interesting thing, is like, if we do create them, what is going to be the process for integrating them into Star Atlas? For example, we do know that Star Atlas has created a wallet mechanism that integrates with Unreal Engine, so that you can actually connect a wallet, which presents a lot of possibilities. That means that if you have an app that connects to a wallet, you might be able to have some functionality that exists within Star Atlas or even in the showroom that a person can access specific to the tools you created without them ever having to leave the showroom. So still a lot of unknowns, and it looks like Star Atlas is kind of leaning to say, hey, well, you tell us what you want, rather than having a fully crafted plan on how they plan to help DAOs, DACs, or guilds.
Yeah, I coming from the Axie Infinity very early on, when there was only like 10 to 20,000 Discord members, and without even AXS being a token that was live, and it was very early on, and there was a lot of support and enthusiasm and content creation specifically on YouTube. Yes, Twitter, there was a small amount and it blew up, but no matter what video streaming platform you're using, like I said earlier, these are the ways that, through your enthusiasm as the investor or player initially, is what's going to help spread the word of the game and what the game is to become and what it is currently. So there was a lot of issues going on throughout the period of its infamousy with its run up in both appreciation as far as the token prices, and then it growing in reputation compared to any other Web3 game. And there wasn't any or very little attention put towards content creators in a way that was monetary. That was monetary, as far as like, but that's where I think Axie fell short, where they didn't have to worry about paying anyone anything when it came to content creation. Now, I say this not because we as Star Atlas content creators should be compensated for our work in promoting of the game. Nothing of the sort. It's more so of taking a step back and looking at what they didn't have to do, which a lot of projects have to do now. And when Jess mentioned how putting money towards marketing and doing it maybe even before there was anything playable, you could always talk against or for that in many ways. For the already existing community and why it should have happened to benefit them. And again, the similar conversations that I experienced with Axie, where there's always been a collective of hardcore supporters at day one who initially invested in the land sale of the digital, pixel plots and of the Axies, all the way up until there was really no hype until the initial growth, where now I would say the masses came in. So we are not at that point where we have mass adoption of any of the assets or the game, because there's nothing really playable. Axie always maybe had this card game playable, so there was something there. So in my opinion, yeah, as soon as there's something tangible, you go hard with marketing. And I'm not to say that you do 110% of all the funds that's allocated towards marketing to be used, but I'm sure there's a strategy, because that's what ultimately needs to be had, a plan for marketing. And this is where content creators come in as a supporting role in that. There's a lot that can be done with a small group of dedicated, consistent content creators for any particular game. And I just see how it benefits the projects of any project when they put more attention, and not, because it's a two-way street, right? There's a lot that the project needs to develop, to learn from, and what better way than hearing people talk about it on stream as they promote and talk about that particular game or other games in the space in general. So if there's any type of healthy relationship between content creators, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel for any content creators that will come onto the scene, that would just be a promising thing, and it would help both sides as far as adoption and bringing more people in, because as the saying goes, optimize for attention drives attention, and then which attracts capital. So if at the end of the day anything that survives is in need of capital, then the reliability and the stickiness are the key factors here. So I commend the team already for doing what they've done, because it is sticky, just with what we had with staking ships, the photos, the artwork, the constant communication and feedback from the foundation room. But the next level is what we're all thinking of, right? We're all anticipating what's next on this quote unquote roadmap. And if it's not stated in the actual roadmap as far as a category just dedicated for marketing, then it's kind of an open conversation. And we as Rome are more than welcome to continue what we're doing, and then even then some, in collaboration with Star Atlas, if there's a need or plans for anything down the line. So kudos to everyone who's doing content for Star Atlas, the community, the guilds. It is partially up to us, and has been for a little while, to optimize for attention rather than maybe some other things that you wanted to focus on more so, because the lack of, I'd say, marketing when it comes to Star Atlas. But again, we're in the growing phase, the building phase, and there's many more phases, I guess, we're going to be going through that we as the people on the outside aren't even conscious of. So yeah, I think
there was a lot of great points there, Ray. You did talk about optimizing attention, and that does lead us a bit on to the next question about how we can get like as many eyes on it as possible. So it's about specifically Turkey. But in Swagner's answer, he said, with that said, we intend to add support for many languages over time, and in many cases, this is already happening with the support of the community. The white paper, for example, has been translated into many languages already. And this is the sort of thing like the community can do for themselves and just their members, but it helps Star Atlas like immensely. So shout out to Coexist for doing that for Turkey.
Yeah, speaking of which, I'm curious your thoughts on this Lumina. Like, how much does it inhibit adoption in Turkey by having it in English only right now? Obviously, English has become the universal language in many regards. You can't be a pilot and travel the world unless you know English, that kind of thing. So it seems to be like, fortunately for me, I can't imagine if like Mandarin was my first language and I'm trying to travel the world. So it's fortunate that English seems to be the first way that games and developers lead. But I am curious for those that, like, in Latin America and other places where English is a second language, how much of a challenge is it for you guys in Coexist to get player adoption without having more information, white papers and things like that in Turkish? So if you could drop that in there, Lumen, I'd be curious to know.
Yeah, while we wait, there's a comment from Wesbit about other projects holding off on marketing too, so it's seeming like a trend. And it does make sense, like, if we are in the moment we are. But we did just come out of a bull run, and that was the time to market. So if there isn't anything yet, then it does make me a bit hopeful for that light at the end of the tunnel, as Ray said earlier.
I don't mind holding off on marketing. My challenge is that quit putting buy pressure on your existing community. If you're going to sell, it's just like there's supply and demand. That's just like that's e-commerce. That's commerce in general. It's like you have to have a market to buy your goods. You just sold $200 million worth in 2021. Or I think they said the actual number was 180 million. So you have a war chest now. That's great. But why continue to sell new ships if you are also not growing your community through a marketing budget? That was my thing. If you want to put off selling ships and you want to put off marketing for now, that's fine. But if you're going to do one, you got to do the other.
So Luminous says it's too much. Yes, English is very widespread, but a lot of the crypto traders know English, but not to the level where they can understand it properly.
Yeah.
Plus, just because of this, they do not really know what they're investing in, simply just buying coins, trading without even knowing. That's the main reason we created the UE5 game.
Yeah. And I think that's awesome because you guys become the bridge. You're kind of like, you're the ambassador, to the Turkish people for this growing blockchain economy that is developing into Star Atlas. So that's cool.
Terminology of finance is sort of requires a high level of English. Yeah, there's a lot of people who are fluent who don't know the slightest thing about finance. You put them in front of terms they don't know, and it's like another language.
Right.
Yeah. I was on mute, but I wanted to make a point of if the community cares more about the token and NFT prices, then the community, then like I guess if that's the basis of what the community cares about more so than any gameplay, because there might not be any, then that's where the main focus is. So converting dormant community members into community builders through whatever marketing that there will be, right, with incentivization, with the programs that are going to be released, is just a great thing to do. So a lot of Web2 companies are driven and supported with content creators. So the method to the madness is there, and I guess the roadmap to success when it comes to content creators and creation is it's not like you're reinventing the wheel. So I think there's a lot to still be said on this topic, and a lot to look forward to. But we're in it. We're in the workings of everything happening. So it's exciting, and then we're essentially building it all together more so than anything else.
Yes, Lumen, I spent a lot of time in Istanbul over the last couple of years. An amazing city for sure. Love it. Yeah, Grist, I absolutely am on board with that here. You're saying that they could slow down ship sales, even incorporate lore and slow down the next phase of ship releases and support the 5,000 to 10,000 who engage with the project. Yeah, I mean, that's the sentiment. And I understand if you want to continue to build your war chest, but match it with an adequate amount of marketing so that you grow your community, so that new people can take on the burden of purchasing those assets rather than expect it to be from the community who's already supported the project thus far.
Yeah, I guess it's worth asking the community if anyone's going to respond back live. We could probably talk about it too. It's just like, what would you guys want to see in maybe specifically the content side of things from what the team wants, or from what you would like from the team, and if not, also just with the upcoming DAC that's going to be released or is being worked on. Like, are there any functionalities or things that you guys are interested in seeing that make it easy for the user, or a particular large group of people like guilds? So things to just think about and then maybe share publicly, because all this feedback actually helps the project grow. So if you had any experience or know of any things that you would personally like that would help you and the group that you're part of, it's probably worth sharing, and we can have a conversation about it as well.
Yeah. So moving on, are there any events like Star Atlas Legends, Armstrong Forever, or Genesis of a Metaverse planned for the near future? And they say they do not presently have any plans, but there'll be opportunities in the future. And there was another interesting thing. They mentioned the final a feature complete version within a couple of months will be ready for the showroom. So yeah, there was a lot of stuff in this article. Shout out to Lumina for this, and everyone over at Coexist this week, this month, they focused on the Atlasio family, and yeah, a lot of different topics in here. If you guys want to check it out, it's at the top of their website on the banners when you go on it.
Cool.
Sweet.
Yeah,
So-
amazing things happening at Coexist. Great community members. We wouldn't be here without them. As far
Yeah,
as
I
where
agree.
we are, I guess, on the timeline with the Star Atlas.
And I
So-
don't know how it's going with like other factions, but I love how things are developing within ONI. So we've got this newsletter now, and for those of you that don't know and that are in other ONI guilds other than Rome or Coexist, we if you are in another ONI guild, then be sure to reach out to us. We've reached out to most of the other guilds because we have a Discord called the ONI Consortium. And that essentially is an embassy, and it's a place for the different ONI guilds within the faction to kind of connect with each other. And whether that's share ideas, whether that's alliances, and in the future, it'll probably be in a great place to settle disputes. So I really like how ONI as a faction is really doing some cool stuff to come together.
Yeah, I agree. So, yeah, if you're interested in that, feel free to shoot me a DM on Discord, and we'll get that sorted. So this week there was a transport ship that got revealed. Well, the outline of it got revealed, and it's a long boy.
It looks big.
Yeah, like a submarine.
I mean, it almost looks like C9 big. It almost looks like it almost looks Capital big. Do we think it's just a large? Because that sucker looks huge.
Yeah, it's too thin to be small, really. Yeah. In the description, it says this one will be transporting all your goods and supplies no matter where you're headed. So, yeah, more variety to the, the Jod Asteris, Greeka, and the Thimble Lobi. Those are the two transports at the moment.
And it's my understanding that this one, actually, the next ship is going to be revealed on the 26th. So we're going to find out, or on either on the 26th or on the 21st, whenever 426 is released. So that's an interesting thing. So it's called 426, but then there's actually a release of information on the 21st.
Yeah. I almost forgot about the Opal Bitboat. That's a transport as well. So the fourth one, I believe.
Yeah, that thing there,
Nice.
that image kind of looks like the aircraft carrier of freighters.
Yeah. So I believe you have some stuff, Jesse, if you...
I do. Yeah. So, whenever we have weeks where there's not necessarily a whole bunch of news going on, or if we have today, we had a guest lined up, but obviously time zones are kind of tricky around the globe. And so then we'll have them on in the future. But we always have some kind of a backup plan. And one of the things I like to do, because again, we are the Metaverse Nomads, is to kind of take a look, zoom out, and say, what is the industry as a whole doing? And if there's not a whole lot of interesting news there, which we've already covered some of it, and it is telling for the direction the industry is going, but then also to zoom back in and look at the projects that we follow themselves. And of course, those projects at this time are Star Atlas, stuff that's also happening over at Gala, and then Axie, and a couple of other placeholders, which I think are relevant in the space, being Sandbox and Decentraland. And then, of course, there's Illuvium. And so with that, these are just a snapshot of where prices are. There's a little bit of rebound here recently, and along with their ties to, of course, Bitcoin and Ethereum. But it's always just good to just get a snapshot of where the prices are. I think the one that's probably the most surprising to me was Illuvium. And the reason for that is that it's been roughly a year since the original staking lockups. And you know what happens when all of a sudden you start releasing a lot of staked assets is that you see, a quick drop in price. And it did for a moment, but it's also nice to see that it rebounded from that, which speaks volumes about, the community and the support within Illuvium. So in many ways, this time last year, I think it was right around 450. So it's at an interesting place. And obviously none of this is financial advice, but just taking a look at what is the industry doing. So that's just there, a quick snapshot. I figure it's kind of good to even going on into the future to kind of just show this is like, what are some of the projects we're taking a look at? What's it doing? What else we got? We already talked about this, about 426 coming up. We obviously Star Atlas is kind of front and center for much of what we talk about because it is the project. Not only is it one of the most ambitious projects in the space, it is the project that probably has the soonest deliverables for things that are going to matter, like, you know, the next version of how we make play to earn within the game. So with that, we've got a bunch of a round of Foundation Room Alpha. So the general rules for Foundation Room, for those that don't know, Foundation Room is a channel within the Star Atlas Discord to which you must be a Nitro booster to have access to this channel. The only thing that we're generally not allowed to share from this channel are images and video and things like that are dropped as alpha. But the conversation, they kind of feel like this is kind of like the platform for people to kind of share what they learn here. And so it's been about a month or so since the last time we took a dive into some of the alpha being shared within the Star Atlas Foundation Room. And so I figured it was kind of time for us to kind of go back and share a few things that we've learned along the way. And of course, one of the usual suspects for getting good alpha within the Star Atlas Foundation Room is Chipto, who we've had on the show, and we're certainly due to have him back on the show, especially as we grow closer to Scream, and we're definitely going to need to do that. So the way that this is structured, and it's changing and evolving over time, is that I generally either take a comment that stands on its own, or I'll take a question that someone asks in the Foundation Room and provide the answer. And these can be talking points, and in some cases, it's just information. So to start with here, there was a question that Wiki had about what are the benefits of a theater module given to a ship? For example, I believe there's a theater module in the Calico Guardian. So what does that do for you? And Chipto's response was, just like the art gallery, it has utility in entertainment and presentation of media. Maybe even help the crew relax after a long day of slinging ore or fending off pirates, which would have its benefits. So based on that, it sounds like they're kind of fleshing that out, and it may be lending towards some point system for crew morale at some point. Perhaps that's it. And then there's another question and goes on where the same wiki goes on to say, let's say I got a rainbow arc and I want to get rid of the art gallery and install a hanger slot instead. Well, I guess that is okay. So when I think of hangars, I'm thinking actually in your starbase, but there are hanger slots within your ships as well to accommodate smaller ships. So I could park my smaller ships on the rainbow arc to bring along with me because I prioritize security over the arts. Would this be a possibility? To which Chipto responds that swapping modules is subject to role restrictions. Every role has a list of modules it can swap. Some modules might have special allowances and restrictions too. Can't provide guidance at the module level because we have more work to do before we know exactly what modules will fit on each ship. Once the ship configuration feature comes out, players will be able to mix, match, test different loadouts, which is going to be interesting at some point because all of these things will be factors. I think that it's ambitious for Scream version 0. So I think we're going to not see that many variables because there's already so many that they have to play with when you think about how many ships they have. But it is nice to just know along the lines of what they're thinking. Any thoughts about this?
Yeah, it is cool to see how they think about it. It would be nice to have proper customization. Like we've seen a clip of them like changing the skin in game, but yeah, swapping modules, that does sound quite complicated, especially since we might be able to see them in the showroom soon. So
Right.
If we swapped by everything inside, it could be like a completely different ship rather than what they've been polishing. So yeah, amount of variables is interesting. They do need to get it right before adding more.
Yeah, it's going to be quite the process, and more information is definitely wanted on that on my end. Because if you were to remake a whole ship, then what does that entail when it just comes to the modules?
And how long? I mean, I'm assuming that if you're off on a mission, you're doing things, you have to consider, okay, I got to get back to the starbase, and then I have to remove these modules. Is there a time? Is there a timer for that? And then is there a timer for adding one? So like, what is the cost of doing that? Is there a cost also associated with it in addition to the time that it takes to swap things out?
Yeah, I think with these types of games, it's all going to come down to the what do you call it? The give or take. So you're going to have to give up something to get something in return, but there's always going to be a loss and something that you'll gain, and it's going to be up to you as the player. So you might waste more resources to get there faster, but then you're going to have to do something to get those resources back to continue with doing what you needed to do for module changing or crafting.
Yeah.
So,
and at some point also, we're probably going to see someone get creative and share kind of like what Althea what Althea was doing a while back with that sheet they showed based on the economic paper, where they were saying, hey, here's the different, firepower based on ships, but also look at how loadouts impact, the effectiveness of a fleet. Because that's essentially what we're going to be seeing happening in Scream, is like, how effective is your fleet for the most common tasks and missions that are available?
For sure. And I think, just while you're getting the next one there, Axie Infinity, I use them as an example because they're going through the trials and tribulations or have found a solution for any of these things, and everyone loves leaderboards. So it's going to be us playing and figuring some certain things out before it's expressed to us by the team, and that's part of the game as well, I guess. And it gives the team some runway as far as time is concerned, where it's not totally necessary to share every detail of every type of ship and its capability, but it's also up to us as a community to stay engaged, to play the game, and to figure things out. So I think it's going to be good.
Yeah. One of Rome's own, Winston here, he was asking, how much can we automate fleet movements in Scream? Can I set my fighters to automatically follow and assist another fleet? Great question. I mean, if you think about that, if you've got enough in ships and you want to protect your assets, can you automate that process, or is it very manual? To which Chipto responds that no, we currently do not have that exact functionality scoped in, because that would essentially allow you to issue single commands to an unlimited fleet size. However, evaluating and prioritizing additional quality of life improvements during play testing. And then I had another question here, but I don't see that I even added the answer. So I'm going to have to dig that up again at some other point. Someone else asked, interesting. So if we leave our ships on a starbase while we sleep, do they contribute to the starbase defense score? Will they lose R4 and get reset to CSS if a base gets taken over? So these are the kind of questions, and obviously I don't, for whatever reason, the answer is not posted in here, but these are all interesting questions in the sense that with gameplay in the very beginning, like, what is the significance of how you put together a fleet? Where is your fleet going? Is the idea to go out and attack and expand your territory? Or are there going to be most people that just say, look, I want to like maintain the star base that I have, so I'm going to put my assets into protecting it? It's going to be a lot of things that we're going to learn here in the coming week or two, even about what it means to participate in Scream. Gris says there, I need to boost and get into Foundation Room. I'm curious about their NPC plans. One of the Disney Accelerator winners is an amazing non-blockchain company called InWorld AI. Great deep dive. Good to know.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, always has really interesting things to say. Thanks, Chris.
Is Scream designed to be also competitive against your faction members? Compete who gets to defeat more fleet, mine more resources, build more star bases, or is it mostly cooperative? Which is a good question. I mean, that's something that's on a lot of our minds. And while the Chipto and the rest of the crew didn't directly address this, Funcracker from AEP did weigh in as one of the moderators of the Discord. He's probably seen this responded to in the past. And his response was the amount of LPs, which are loyalty points, that you earn. By the way, those are faction loyalty points. So for those that don't know, the system is such that a faction as a whole is going to get a collection of loyalty points, and your participation for your faction will dictate how much of that you earn. And he actually goes on to explain this a little bit here. So the amount of loyalty points you earn versus the total amount of loyalty points earned within your faction within a certain epoch will determine how much Atlas you will earn. So if you've earned less loyalty points than someone else, you'll get a smaller slice of the Atlas pie than them. So in that sense, you're indirectly competing with them. Other than that, you are, of course, cooperating to the extent that the faction's territory. It's like you're working together to build a house. The amount paid out per day is fixed, and your share of the payment depends directly on the amount of bricks that you got in compared to the total amount of bricks that got added that day. So your collective aim is still to build the house together. But if you earn above the average one day, someone else will be earning less. And so we have heard, and I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts on this, is that the nature of earnings is going to change. Score, you just stake. It's a staking model. You put in, your ships have a VWAP value. You get certain reward emissions on that. You have a certain associated cost with the 4Rs. But that's going to change as to where in the future, there's really no guarantee of earnings without strategic gameplay. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I think that's the best way to go in this space. It might be sooner for some than others, but strategic, skillful play with others is what should grant one person over or group over the other to earn more or less, to earn more than someone else who is just like maybe spamming what they need to, as far as like we could compare it to a card game or any other game. But yeah, I think this is the best route to take, and that's it. It incentivizes and cultivates this culture within the community of playing together, of joining a guild, right? And if there's going to be a mass, organized front or attack, let's say on adoption with bringing new people in, then they can be disseminated into these groups of guilds to then take part with the assets they've bought right away to help a bigger cause, and then ultimately help themselves earn if that's what they care about. Because you'll be able to earn more with a bigger group than, I guess, by yourself with just your one ship. So I think it's good.
Cool. Yeah. Speaking of Funcracker, by the way, the tentative plans are to have him on the show on the 14th of next month, maybe sooner, but definitely by that time.
Nice.
So this was a question for Wagner. The question is about staking a polis in the game. I currently have a Star Atlas account with all of my ships and other NFTs. This wallet is unfortunately not protected by a ledger, and I don't want to lose my experience points that I've earned through the staking of my ships. And he's talking about the experience that's associated with how seasoned your ships are, because that's the only thing that we have that's gaining any points at this point. So I would like to create a fresh second account specifically for staking of polis in the DAO, with this time a wallet protected by ledger. Will having two separate accounts, one for NFTs, another for polis, be a problem when the Star Atlas game will be fully deployed? I mean, that can it be a handicap for a game from a game point of view? Will it be possible to later associate several wallets to the same Star Atlas account? Are we in the future allowed to create multiple accounts? So this is a good question, because logistically speaking, there are decisions that you're making right now that we don't know the impact of later. For example, I have two accounts, and my two accounts, even though they're in the same faction, one is just for my lower cost ships that I just didn't want to go through the process of having to refuel all the time, that I just have them in a regular wallet. Then I have higher priced assets that sit on a ledger. And of course, you got to go through the transaction process of each of that. So these are questions that are weighing on people's minds, to which the answer was, Well, you haven't actually earned any XP on your account yet. So when he was referring to what he was getting for seasoned accounts, those aren't actually points, loyalty points, or anything like that. However, your account will have an LP award associated with it, which impacts earnings in at least the initial epoch. While I think it's reasonable to keep your ships in faction fleet until Scream comes out, it is advisable to move them into cold storage after. So right there, you're hearing it directly from the CEO of Star Atlas that, and this is not new information. He has always recommended that cold storage is the safest method to protect your assets because it is. Okay. For you, if you have this device, no one can take your stuff with this. So for that reason, it is, it's what's recommended. But the challenge now becomes, when do you do it? Because some people don't want to lose that seasoned aspect of their fleet being staked. He goes on to say, having separate accounts could indeed create an issue for you when we introduce in-game DAOs, since those DAOs will be reading your active account and not a separate wallet address. While I would suggest it is possible to link multiple accounts, I don't know what the technical requirements are to doing so at this time. Might make sense to rip the Band-Aid off and start from scratch with the cold storage as the safest option and most efficient going forward. So for me, at some point, I'm going to take my ships that I've got that aren't in cold storage and not on my drive and actually move them over so I just have the one. And it sounds like the recommendation is for those of you that don't have a ledger or similar device, that you're probably going to want to consider that so that you can get it done so you don't have to do it later.
Yeah, this is what made me buy a ledger. When we was about 30 days in, I switched over, so I lost 30 days instead of now potentially losing like the 200 plus, I think it is, or whatever it is. So yeah, it is interesting that he says that's until Screen comes out and then move it. So there could be like an airdrop where it counts the day that you have, like what rank you're at, and then gives you like a reward depending on that. And then once that's out, you'll be like free to switch it around, because it is a bit of a hassle having all of these restrictions regarding like what you can do about personal finance, just because of some arbitrary reward that we don't even know what is yet.
Right.
I think, that's spot on, and I think it'll be beneficial to just wait for an announcement. Let's say you are this deep into the game as far as the days. I personally wouldn't just switch over, but again, not financial advice. If you feel it's necessary, and no matter what the rewards are for these badges, I think you do what you got to do. But I'm personally going to hold off, as a good amount of my ships are not on a ledger, although I have one and had one for some time now. I just, with all other things I had to do, just hadn't gotten to it. So I'm going to hold off until there's an official announcement, and then I'm going to do what I got to do and switch them over.
Yeah, so 224 days gives you elite, and interesting to see if they add more, or if they like anticipated that's the amount we would be up to and by the game would be released by.
So to Aquila first question here, I think that it was mentioned at some point that a snapshot was going to be taken. Yep. So once the snapshot occurs, that is a good question. If you actually are using a new wallet that's been established with a ledger, or can you? I don't remember. I think I established my ledger before I set up the Star Atlas wallet, before I actually signed up. So I don't think that was something I did after the fact, but I'd be curious to know, like, how does that work? So that is a good question for us to determine. Is it transferable? And maybe that's the easiest way for them to do it. Say, we'll take a snapshot, but then once that snapshot's taken, go ahead and move. And then there's some process that allows you to transfer the value of that snapshot to whatever wallet you've established on hardware.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what this reward is, and if it has been worth the wait and all this careful consideration, or like buying a hard wallet early so you don't have to worry about it later.
Right. So, question here on LP, the loyalty point system. We know we can spend LP, assuming at the end of the epoch, on additional hangar spaces and other items. What about the Atlas earnings? Is this paid out automatically based on total LP earned during the epoch, regardless if you spent that LP on items? To which Wagner responded, you should be able to spend LP freely during the epoch. We will still have a record of your LP earned over that period. So it sounds like he's saying that you don't have to, that the LP that's earned is when, as soon as you earn it, be it on a mission or during or whatever live, you're actually able to make use of that right away, even though they're recording its use. Is that how you guys are reading that?
Yeah, that's how I'm understanding it.
Cool. To which Moonmonger replies, got it. So Atlas payout is automatic straight to the wallet at end of epoch. Wagner responds, should be either that or available to be claimed, as is the case for Score, but probably auto distribution. So yeah, and again, a lot of these things are still being worked out, which it's, we can't like take any of this that's being shared in Foundation Room and say, you said, because it's the nature of something in development. So I'm just happy that they're open and they share that the way that they do, but we also have to hold it in that regard. You are a part of the alpha development process. So they're sharing what they believe things to be. And of course, all of this is subject to change. Windsplitter asks Bunthius, on a serious note, we've seen that you've published a land vehicle picture. There will also be agricultural vehicles too, given what has already been released. His questions are, will there be different classes of vehicles as well? Ambulances, combat vehicles, land drills, all that sort of thing. And if so, will the major manufacturers, Pierce, Busan, Calico, and others, make those, or should we expect other makers to join the verse? Bunthius responds, most planning for large carrier types of ground vehicles, mostly planning for. So that's what we can expect. But the pipeline could be ripe for other creators to take them on after the balancing is well defined. The agricultural vehicles will probably only be AI at first, which makes sense. I mean, when you think about how many moving parts this project has as a whole, I would think that a lot of them are going to be AI driven, and then things will have the potential to be introduced later, but just the bare minimum to start. There's already tons of moving parts. You guys want to take this one? I need a bio break. So you want to jump on this one?
Yeah, sure. Let's take turns. So
Cool.
Capgan asks, when a star base is destroyed, the materials used to build it will be destroyed / burned, right? What mechanism does Scream bring for Atlas burning? Chipto responds, partial burn, some materials lootable when the star base is destroyed. Also has a few mechanisms for Atlas sinks and utility. Yeah.
Nice.
It's quite hard for me to visualize this. I'm used to playing, seeing what's right, and restarting when I get it wrong until I get it perfect.
Right.
That's my play style.
Yeah, I'm in a similar position, but it's good to know that any particular questions that are related to these types of parts of the game and how it's functioning are able to be answered. So this is a blessing in disguise for those who might be watching and not really understanding, I guess, why we're doing this or the importance of it. Although everything is still being worked out and will change, like just said, subject to change, it's something more than other projects are doing at the moment. So I guess I could take the next one here. So Helper asks or mentions, hi Swagner, is it fair to assume that, for example, one C11 is equal to around 3 ballads? Does the size of the ship play a role in its power? Hope you get the question. And then Chipto jumped in to answer, and he says, notionally you are correct, but we are not able to provide any hard numbers this early because they are being balanced and because they are a multitude of performance metrics to compare. So, for example, HP, damage per second, cargo capacity, etc. But yes, the size matters, as does the role. So I guess in confidence, he's able to give us that information. Some of us might already knew it, but size I guess without without needing anything too much about it, does matter. It would be stronger, more powerful, and the role of the ship here is also important. So consider that when purchasing your ships if you haven't jumped in yet.
Yeah, I agree. I guess there is also the argument for how you use it.
Right. That's the big X factor here, because you could do nothing with a big ship that's powerful, or something. But yeah, there was a lot of talk, especially with that chart from AFIA, with the assumed or speculated power of a particular ship, and I was reading in the foundation room of a breakdown of like 3 ballads equals 1 C11 as far as like the power of it. So if you had 3, it would be better, and then depending on the cost. So there's many variables to consider, but it's still, I think, too early to just make a decision on anything as far as what you purchase. So just do your due diligence and learn as much as you can before the 21st. I hate to rush people into buying anything, but we know that on the 21st there's going to be a repricing of Atlas, but we can get into that later.
Yeah, it's really hard to judge what is good, especially now we have that firepower list. There's just too many things that aren't included from
Right.
like the calculations. Like it says Unabomber's the weakest, but there's plenty of weaker ships than that. I'm sure that bomb will be worth quite a bit. An epic extra small, so extra small.
I agree. Onwards. Well, I don't know if you wanted to keep this hidden, but Enigma, you're a Roman, so I'm going to shout you out. So another one of our guild members here, and I guess I'll just read them off. In Scream, if a ship is destroyed in the MRZ, so the mid-range zone, can cargo be collected by another player? And Chipto chimes in, saying, yes, you will be able to loot items from destroyed ships. Salvaging loot is planned for the first release of Scream. So all ships are capable of this activity. Very important to know. At least we're able to do this, and it's going to be a big part of, I guess, playing the game.
Yeah, and we got this not very detailed map, but it's the diagram of what it's going to be. So the mid-range zone or medium risk zone, as it's actually called, is like Euro 3, Euro 4, Euro 1, and the Cataclysm at the middle, that's the high risk zone where profits are around 8 times higher, but you can lose your stuff permanently. I'm not sure if it's still going by them, like 1 time profit in the safe zone, 3, I think, in medium, and 8 in high risk, but that's what I remember.
So the add-on question of this, I guess, would be, is loot only accessible by whoever destroyed the fleet, or is it open to scavengers?
I think it's fair game. Anyone who's able and comes across it or makes an effort to go get it, it could be whoever it is.
Yeah, it'd be quite cool to have 2 ships, like kill both of them, play each other, and just there's a massive pile of loot just left over for like
a draw.
Pirate.
It's going to be interesting, because imagine you've got a situation where 2 fleets go head to head, and of course, when you have that, both fleets are going to take damage in most cases. So then, let's say that you've got one that's destroyed, and fleet number 2 that did the destroying is now eligible to gather that loot, but the fleet's at like 10% health. That's an opportunity for someone to just say, hey, let me take out this guy and take both. So it's going to be interesting to how that plays out.
Yeah, Luminous said that it will spread. So, like an explosion, everything will go off in random directions, including like the hull, if that drops, and crew members and damaged weapons and scraps and things like that.
It's going to look like our outro, the Atlas Miner video, free out in space.
The most relevant song ever in the history of Star Atlas.
Yes.
So Checkmate says, will fleet formations play a role in Scream? Would love to give some X6 the command to protect my freight carrier by circling around it, just as an example. Of course, it's a little early to tell, but would love to hear current thoughts about whether it would be possible to reset one skill tree at some point in the future. Thinking of WoW, where you paid 10 gold and you could reskill everything from scratch. Any plans on that, or will any skill point chance be permanent? Thank you for the great work. ... Yes, forming fleets of multiple ships is core to Scream. Perfect.
The question that's going to come up is like, what is the right formation? Like, what are the models for forming a fleet? And it's actually going to be very much like, even when we look at card games, when you think of like the best hand you can have, you know, supporting ships, ships that are able to be efficient with their use of the 4Rs, ships that you can add to the fleet that bring the most firepower but consume the lowest amount of resources, you know, things like that. So it's going to be interesting, like, what is the best model for forming your fleet to be the most functional?
I think, again, it's going to be one of those things where there is probably a specific way to make it the most efficient and optimal as far as the ship, but it's going to be up to the community with what their imagination to mix and match and to experiment ultimately, because that's again another thing that's happening in Axie, because I'm playing the game where there's runes and charms, and no one's going to tell you how to be the best with the particular team you have. So I think it's going to be fun to see what people share as far as content and user-generated content on Twitter and then YouTube, of what their ship is and how strong it is compared to the same ship, role, and model, but with different components. I'm looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to the day you can retrofit your R8 with those big fuel tanks, but actually those would just be smuggling cargo bays. No one will suspect the R8 as the great smuggling operation.
When you're refueling, it's just sending a little cargo into the...
Yeah,
that'd be funny.
Hidden in plain sight. So I could take this one.
Yep.
We have a question here. I apologize if this was asked, but it happens a lot. There's a lot of questions that might be asked. So he apologizes. Okay, fine. So for data validation fleets, will they have a loop other than initial exploratory things in Scream? Perhaps scanning PvE mods on respawn, not just scanning planets or resources? Or will data validation fleets just operate kind of like how racer/fighters in Scream? And then we have a response from Chipto: no additional data runner specific game loops for the initial release. Again, every single ship role has a unique perk, though, for when you slot them in a fleet.
So my takeaway from that is that, and there was another comment that led me to believe this as well, is that data runners are not going to have any game specific loops. Will a data runner in your fleet provide some scanning ability? Potentially, but there's no loops that are specific to data running. And the same for stealth. There's not going to be any game loops, my understanding is, that are going to make use of stealth and stealth-based ships in the game.
Didn't Star Citizen have the same problem where they're like still building exploration, and just like data running, you need like a full developed universe to go and explore to do that. So that'd be
unfortunate, but yeah.
And it's surprising, as Lumina was saying here, that the Visus Opod is useless. I mean, I don't know about useless, and it probably adds cargo space and things like that to your fleet as a whole. So there'll be some focus there. But this is probably is one of my favorite. It is one of my favorite ships. I think it's it's pound for pound one of the best ships available. If you could only have one ship, this is a cool ship to have. So I'm surprised that there's not more available within Scream that is a fit for specifically what the Opod does.
Well, in Stellaris, the researcher scientist type of thing, they are quite similar as well. They can like help a planet with their research and like go and discover things and things like that. So yeah, there could be potential for like other uses, but going out and exploring in Unreal Engine 5 and mapping out the universe, that's quite a long way away. Yeah.
You like when someone says a quick question, but then they got like a whole book. They're asking Chipto and Bunthius. They've been playing a lot of other crypto and NFT games, and one thing they've noticed is that is extremely off-putting, not just to him but other people, in the presence of bots. So this is a bot-related question. So he's essentially saying that the fact that bots make a lot of games and gameplay unappealing for a lot of players, and in the end, it just ends up being a bot fest. Now, I understand the vision of free market economy and all that, but the fact of the matter is that it is that oversaturation of bots in the universe and the consequential oversaturation of resources circulating in the market isn't going to be good for any type of economy. So his question is, what is the team's stance on this? And if it's shareable, what strategies are being discussed to make this a non-issue? And I think we get the rest of the point here. It's like, what is Let's take on bots, and what are they going to do about it? So two people weighed in. Bunthius weighed in, and Chipto weighed in. And Bunthius, actually three people weighed in. Bunthius said that bots will probably be largely unavoidable, which they're going to be, if you think about it. It's just a part of even Townstar. I mean, every game out there has to deal with bots. If a person can write a script to make their life easier, they're going to do it. And if they can write a script that takes advantage of an exploit, they're going to do that as well. And there's just no way to completely eliminate. What you can do is discourage. Bunthia says if it becomes operationally more expensive to spread your assets across multiple wallets, then that should nullify a lot of non-player activity. If you have two wallets with 5 air bikes in each of them, it should be much better use of your time to put 10 air bikes in one wallet. There will be a large amount of wallet-bound items that improve your experience and rewards. They won't be able to be traded, so spreading those rewards out between multiple wallets and getting a slower rate of reward shouldn't make sense. That's one of the basic theories that we're implementing to demotivate multi-botting or boxing or botting. Also, more ideas that being a human gives you an edge on, but those ideas need to be tested out before talking much more about them. So essentially what Bunthius is saying here is that they're doing things to discourage the use by minimizing the benefit of botting. Like botting usually is where you're going to make use of multiple wallets to take advantage of something. And he's saying that we're trying to eliminate that because the point system and things you would get across that are going to be of more value in a single wallet, which is going to be a deterrent for bots that are looking to make use of multiple wallets. And Chipto goes on to say that we're also taking resource emission rates and economic balancing seriously. Don't expect thousands of bots to be able to mine the same safe zone planet profitably in perpetuity. Another factor is barrier to entry. Those thousands of bots require the purchase of assets to play the game. Lastly, because there's actual risk of loss of cargo R4 in the medium risk zone, bot busting and PvP combat can make a careless bot farm venture very unprofitable, which is true. And you think about it, it's like if someone is looking to make use of bots, the thing a bot will never really be able to do is or at least not for a long period of time, is be able to react the way that a human can. So if you have a bot that's out mining and trying to move resources one location to another, you're out there yourself like, this activity looks like a bot. Let's just raid their ship and take them out. So yeah, it's a deterrent for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And especially the point about each account needing their own assets. It's not just as simple as putting time in. Like you can in WoW, you can have like 10 characters all doing the same thing, like multi-boxing. But yeah, you'd need to, it just makes way more sense to put it in like one account. And unless somebody creates like a bot that can act like a human enough to pass their Turing test to get that like human level of earnings. That'd be funny.
Yeah, there's
a bot hunter.
Yeah, there's already a guild who was in the foundation room talking. I forget now the name, but their goal would be to snipe these bots and then profit accordingly. But yeah, I think the ultimate earnings are going to be from humans and you putting the time in playing. I think bots will make some profits, but they won't last long, and it's just the name of the game.
Yep. And Xcode has a really good point here. He says, as long as things are designed in a way that botting enhances gameplay and the economy for humans, there shouldn't be a need for concern. In his opinion, the reason bots get a bad rep is because they are abused in-game economies that are not designed to accommodate them. In the real world, humans thrive on the use of robotics and automation that complement our workflows. And our game economy could leverage that rather than fight it. Because the truth is, yeah, I mean, think about that. If there's a way that you can go to, a mining operation and use bots and you're not have to be a part of the interaction of mining the resources, you're going to want to use bots wherever you can. I guess it only comes into play when bots are exploiting what is traditionally set up to be human-oriented gameplay.
Right.
He goes on to say, I'm looking forward to hunting bots while I'm awake and letting my bots do whatever they do while I'm asleep. You want to take this?
Yeah, I guess so. Chipto was saying stealth mechanics are not part of. So these are just some, I guess, statements here related to maybe a question or not. But stealth mechanics are not part of V0. So stealth has to do with energy output suppression and radar sensitivity. Higher stealth equals higher tier radar to detect. So I don't know if you want to. Any particular opinions or thoughts on that alone?
Just that stealth is not going to be a part of it, but at some point when it does become a part, it's going to be related to suppressing your energy output,
right.
The energy signature. If you're someone that's out there scanning in deep space, what you're going to pick up on is the energy signature of the ship, unless they have some means to suppress it.
Right. So it's pretty straightforward on that end. And then we have what we've known for a while now, that the 4R consumption is being completely reworked, and it'll become in the hands of the community. So it's going to be a free market of resources and no longer a set amount for an Atlas price as we are experiencing on the market. Bunty is here. We've had some deep discussions about this, whether all NPCs are their own actual wallet driving. Let me start over. We've had some deep discussions about this, whether all NPCs are their own actual wallets driving the economy on a granular scale. I'd like that to me. I'd like that to me would make pirating and PvE really interesting. Since the tech is supposed to be worked on for your own AI units, we should theoretically be able to simulate that a vast galactic NPC population, which would include improving skills in the simulation as well, because these programs / simulations would pull from the same program as your units. It is already being worked on, early stage in Scream, and then constantly iterated on for the foreseeable future. So yeah, go ahead.
So that's interesting.
Very.
It shows you the level of gameplay that they're thinking about. Can you imagine that at some point you run into an NPC ship, and that ship has an actual wallet associated with the resources on that ship? It's when you think about the depth of involvement that a virtual economy, in a metaverse world like Star Atlas could entail in the future. These are some interesting concepts to think about, and obviously not easy ones to solve for today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess like if you, for example, start mining and then you sell that to an NPC and they need to like transport that back to wherever, and they're like a part of the economy, that would make sense. If somebody like intercepts that transport on the way, then it would stop that from entering the economy and like trickling down to all the other places, and there'd be backlogs and delays. So it could be better to actually have like human people in charge of like transporting, if there are people out there like with malicious intentions, which there will be.
Yeah, I'm wondering how complicated the system will be for these NPCs, because it could be taken advantage of and exploited. Because if it's a particular route or set of routes that if you then traded your resources for whatever reward, they're going to be on their trajected, mission to bring it back to X location. But then if that route is known by a particular guild or person and they scout long enough, you can pick up on the patterns maybe. So I think you're right, where depending on how they're going to set it up, it could either be a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, that is the question, because how do you do that? Have NPCs make use of wallets when the resources in game are going to have an XY locator? For example, your ship, your assets, everything that's on chain has a location tag associated with it. That being the case, imagine that someone's got the skills to do nothing but sniff out blockchain and say, hey, look, here's the resources we're after. Here's the ship. Here's the location. Let's go get them. So in other words, they're using resources and information on chain to be able to exploit things within the game. So I'm curious, what will be the thing that prevents that?
Yeah, what I get from that is they're trying to build like a deep pirating gaming loop, because just the way it was set up, there isn't like a specific place for them. They kind of just hang out in the high risk zone, I guess. So this gives them targets with actual loot in them, which I think is quite cool if they want to go for player versus environment rather than PvP, which would be more predictable and safer, depending on if they're like Stallman guards who are always stronger than you, then
yeah,
good luck. Yeah, I'm gonna love seeing how this unfolds, because I think it definitely adds much value and context and substance to a game. As we all have experienced, NPCs are pretty mundane and just not that the most exciting. But this is right down the aisle of AI, so this could potentially be the beginnings of what we talked about in previous episodes, and then what projects are talking about as far as AI is concerned. You're going to have NPCs who can make decisions that are going to not be, I guess, predictable in the same way that we're talking.
And
we're and if they are predictable, then I guess they would have to like put some body of people in charge of it so they can like change tactics when the NPC is being abused, and it's like people understand how to like game it in a specific way.
Rights for NPCs. Rights for NPCs.
We're about to see it go through a whole nother level of growth on what AI can do. There's so much energy and focus put into it. I mean, just to give you one example, a lot of people don't know this, but since 2015, so what has that been, like 7 years now? Apple has acquired 20 companies that are in some fashion related to AI, machine learning, augmented reality, virtual reality. I mean, that's just how much general interest there is out there by like the big 5 companies that are. And of course, we talked about AI recently on a show and Lambda and some things happening at Google. But we're at a place soon where NPCs will not only have a different level of interaction with their gameplay, but they will evolve through machine learning and how to implement aspects of self-preservation that are going to be different from anything we've experienced in games prior.
Absolutely. And and I guess to finish off this little slide here, all the way at the bottom, Swagner's like the next ship is going to be rolled out during the 426 live. So spoiler alert, prepare for another ship.
So we had a look at that, the submarine type.
Yeah.
Yep.
So is 426 live happening on the 21st, or is it happening on the 26th?
21st.
21st. So 426 happens on 721. Got it. All right. All right. It's all clear now.
You're right. It all makes sense. There's a method to the madness.
Yes.
What about the any more slides? Oh, yes, we do.
We got a few more. Go back up. There we go.
So here we go. So you mentioned in the econ channel, a question by Mustache here. You mentioned in the econ channel that universal voting polis will be able to be used in sub-DAOs. Will there be a restriction on where we can allocate our polis votes? And Swagner responds with, my comment was that it is most likely we still have a long way off from the sub DAOs. So anything I suggest here is highly subject to change, but the conceived of route would allow a user to leverage their VP across any class of DAO. So
Voting
faction,
polis. Mhm.
right? So VP is the voting power or polis.
Yeah.
Um, And then we have faction. Faction is easy since you will only be in one faction per wallet. However, you might be involved in multiple regional DAOs, in which case you will need to determine how to divide your VP across any that you wish to participate in. So the key point is that your universal DAO VP can be applied across multiple classes of DAOs. And yeah, it makes sense. His explanation makes sense because you're going to be a part of many, I guess, DAOs within, or you're going to have the ability to vote many times within the faction you're in because there's different guilds and different areas within the ONI faction. If we're talking about ONI, so your voting power shouldn't be limited to just you and your guild alone, or the ultimate umbrella of the ONI faction.
So it will be interesting to see how that works out because essentially the first DAO that you can participate in with your polis is going to be the one that's coming out here in the next week or two, couple of weeks. And based on the polis that you have in that primary DAO, and I'm not sure what the actual name is, they're calling that external DAO that is for the whole of Star Atlas. And then you have the DAOs within the game itself, which
Right.
are the faction and the regional DAOs. And as he mentioned here, you can be involved in multiple regional DAOs, but just your faction. You're not going to be putting your polis into multiple factions. It's going to be the faction you're associated with. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that works. And so that you can utilize your voting power across different regions for whatever those, and I'm curious to know what those first things that you will be able to vote on. Like when those are going to be shared, it's going to tell us a lot about gameplay. Like what are the different elements of a regional DAO and of a faction DAO that you can place your voting power towards to weight in your favor.
Right. That's going to be interesting, and it's a game all in itself. So a lot of people in the guild express how they're here for the politics of the game, not so much fighting in the front lines or necessarily like mining and grinding for resources. So this is the game is going to appeal to a lot of different people just right out the gate, apparently.
Yeah. And that DAO's starting to get, I haven't seen the latest on how many, and how much Atlas is in that wallet, but all of the 4Rs, is this the Polis Locker?
It's what we saw at Copa, so it's an
yeah.
example of what can be there.
But all of the 4Rs for ships thus far are going into the DAO, to the Polis DAO, and then it's going to transition from that into the fees for hangars, for hangar expansion. I don't know what else they have planned for that, but those things are going into the Polis DAO as well. And then those funds are voted on, as I understand it, for what the DAO collectively wants to do with that treasury.
Yeah.
Next question. Was that the last question? Oh, okay. It is Polis related. Okay. Didn't know if multiple faction access badges played any role in voting or if this was an overlap in regional DAO areas. This is a simple one. Basically, the question is that if you have a multi-faction pass, does that allow you to vote in multiple DAOs? And the answer is absolutely not. The faction pass is for commerce and economics. There'd be too much room for political espionage if you allowed cross-faction voting. So no, your polis is only going to influence the DAO associated with the wallet that it's in. So, I mean, one way I guess you could do it,
considering the amount of polis only owns.
Right.
So you could essentially, I mean, way you could engage in political espionage is to simply package a whole bunch of polis and a wallet associated with an opposing faction.
So are we gonna reach out to VCs for seed rounds just to buy Polis to then
Right.
open up another faction wallet and then just do that?
People get suspicious when they see a faction vote for a 10% tax that goes to another faction.
Right. Left field.
Yeah. It's an unusual thing to vote for. How did it win?
And how does
what's that?
no? And I was just thinking if that actually happened, then how do we revert that? I guess as a faction, if the most Polis, it would need to be everyone coming together, no matter what differences you have, to focus on just getting rid of whatever that vote was. That was probably, but maybe far fetched from now, but just a thought. But yeah,
It would have to be a lot when you think about it. So
Yeah,
someone from another faction to actually overturn or influence a crazy vote like that, they would have to have more Polis than the collective faction had to, that are obviously going to vote in the interest of their own faction. So yeah, not something likely to happen, but it would be funny.
Yeah, the faction would have to buy more Polis, and then I guess the first person could just dump on them.
Right. Oh man. So I'll take this from Morpheus. So wouldn't it be more interesting to incentivize players to make a strategic choice? For example, spend LP for more hangar spaces, or keep LP for higher Atlas rewards. It seems to me that it would also ponder Atlas inflation. I also remember Chipto saying about the different factors influencing the earnings. For example, what he said was whether you are spending LP on in-game consumables or saving for something else. And then he links the Discord link to what Chipto said. And then he goes on to say, I know that the economic development of Scream is still in progress and subject to changes, but perhaps you can clarify this point. Thanks. Prayer hands. And then Swagner jumps in and he says, we have some flexibility to play around with things like this. However, bear in mind that the projected emissions curve does exist. So now, given the simplicity of score and immaturity of the economy, some liberties were taken with respect to executing the full potential of that curve. However, with a more mature economy and economic loops in Scream, the current strategy is to deploy 100% of the daily projected emissions. It does imply that Atlas emissions will go up overall, but with sufficient sinks in place to continue absorbing it or incentivize saving. Just a note, Atlas emissions are not presently causing the exchange rate against the USD to go down, as some people are assuming. We actually have decent tracking on those flows, and very few earning wallets actually sell those earnings. So 99% of exchange rate volatility is due to market correlation at this stage.
Yeah. This one chaps my hide a little bit, only because so here's what this is really saying. We have some flexibility to play around with things like this. However, bear in mind that a projected emission curve does exist. But the reason that they have more flexibility now is because they didn't make any adjustments during score. And leading up to score, I looked at it. Wagner specifically said 6 times. You can look it up. You can search for where there were adjustments being made in dialogue prior to score launching, that they were going to be making adjustments to the emissions, and not a single adjustment has been made. So what this is saying is that there is obviously going to be more available within Scream because they haven't maxed out their, I don't think they've maxed out their adjustments in score because they never made any adjustments. So what that also says to me is that at any time, this may not even be accurate because you can decide that later that you don't want to do what you're saying here. So that's the rough thing I have, is that 6 times they said they were going to, he said specifically, we're going to make adjustments to emissions, and not a single one was made. So what happens in the future here is anyone's guess. For me personally, I like to see consistency with someone's message. And if they don't do it, I want them to explain to me why that they didn't and actually have it make sense.
So
Yeah, I think I think Lumen asked this question on the last Twitter space that was done because the 4 to 6 is so close. They didn't want to do a town hall just before it.
Right.
And yeah, that question was asked, I believe, to some degree, to Swagner. I'll send you the link afterwards.
Yeah, I know what the original story was. The original story was, wow, we didn't think as many people were going to be staking their ships. Like, what did you think people were going to do? They're going to buy ships but not stake them. And so they ended up paying out more. And there was a number of things that were given as to why they did make the adjustments, but none of them really made a whole lot of sense. So
Yeah.
I'm curious to see if they add anything new to what the original message was.
Yeah, there is some new information. I could share my screen here just for, I guess, evidence of it. But let me, in the foundation room, let's go share screen. And Windows, here we go. So this is a response here that Ragnar gave to a commenter, Calvin. Maybe not to go into Calvin's, but maybe just for the context here. Calvin asks, what is the algorithm you use to determine emissions relative to VWAP? With all due respect, we're coming from you're coming off as dismissive, so yada yada. He's saying his question wasn't answered. So sorry, we're not all as quick as you. Blah blah blah. So it looks like emissions are pegged to some arbitrary date / price in the past, and prices aren't. He had respect. Okay. It makes sense if we're getting the percentage of Atlas back each day, but now a Calico enforcer will cost 100,000 Atlas, and we'll be getting 100 per day. And it looks like that's because the amount of Atlas we are told are worth 0.03, and the Atlas you get are worth what the market says. What this change in pricing signals to me is that you had hopes for Atlas going back up to 1 cent, but now you don't, and it's important to adjust your intake and not ours, as far as Star Atlas's side. So our only hope to make back the 30K investment is to hodl Atlas until it does, because my payouts will not match the new price of my ship in USD / Atlas for 6 years, according to what his calculations are. And then Wagner follows up saying, give a listen to the Twitter Spaces recording on Friday. I provide full rationale for the move. Again, I think most people understand the strategy. Atlas earnings are not guaranteed to be tied to ship prices in Atlas. They are, but they are currently tied to USDC. And the model for earning Atlas in the future is going to change dramatically when we roll out Scream. I have discussed at length here and elsewhere the earnings model behind Score and our logic for retaining the original design. I'm not quite sure how you declare that I'm being dismissive. Okay. But the present, yeah. So
the gist of the message is that this person is making inquiries, and Wagner said we addressed it on the Twitter space, and then the person responded with, that's great, but it also sounds like each time that someone asks you, you're saying you already covered it, but I'm not understanding it. So where can I find it where that it's clear? And the thing that I'm pointing at is that this is a business, regardless of what anyone wants to call it and think of it. It's a game, but it's also a business. And we're the early investors in this business. And when you set a proper expectation for something, if you deviate from that expectation, you need to give a credible reason why, so that everyone is clear on it, so that you rebuild trust, so that people understand why you deviated away from what your clear and original message was. That, in my opinion, has not actually happened. I still believe that Star Atlas is doing amazing things, and that they have a huge task on their hands of juggling a lot of things to bring this to life and make it happen. That just happens to be one sore spot for me that I don't feel was ever addressed clearly. And because of that, it leads me to believe that the potential for it is there to happen again, where you say you're going to do this, and then you come up with a reason that's not very clear for why you deviated away from that. That's why I'm sharing this, because the truth is, at the end of the day, I believe it's important to hold projects accountable, and this serves the industry as a whole by doing that. And it's not just enough to be a fanboy and say, hey, look, Star Atlas is great, they're doing wonderful things. No, if you give a specific about something you're going to do, you need to own that. And if you have to deviate, which there's always going to be reasons for that, make it clear why, and not just say, well, this is something we already discussed. No, make it clear so that everyone understands it. That's important.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of people are referring to the Twitter space that we will send afterwards.
Mhm. And I don't know if we have any more, but let's see. I think that
so. Yeah, we do.
we do. We got a couple more, just a
Yeah.
few.
Yeah, quite a few actually. 15, I believe.
Oh, we'll get a load of us. This is because we haven't dug into this for a while. It's something we should probably
Right.
do at least every 2 weeks.
Regularly, yeah.
Because this is important for the people that watch this and are a part of the developing Star Atlas community. And based on some of the comments, I see there's actually a lot of people that don't have access to Foundation. This is a way for you to still have an idea of what is being shared by the development team.
So you want to fast track these?
You got it.
Okie dokie. Okay, here we go. So I'm here keen on finding out what Atlas syncs are already planned apart from hangar upgrades, since R4 will be crafted by players in the future. That will no longer be an Atlas sync, as it will just exchange hands person to person or player to player, unless there is a percent tax on each transaction. And Wagner responds with, sure, the next quarterly state of the economy report is going to emphasize changes in the economy from score to scream. So a lot of data will be available at that time. However, keep in mind Atlas locking is coming as an incentive structure on the marketplace with some other perks. So also he mentions R4/R20 being player economy does not eliminate it as a sync. Outside of some taxation rate, players do not manage inventory with 100% efficiency. You require your own R4 to produce/craft any other resource. So some margins in Atlas retained some margin in Atlas retained to ensure your player can continue operations should be assumed. So there's a small print here.
Yeah, so I mean that sounds like a way that they'll be able to pull levers and do things that are going to have an influence on Atlas, which I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the whole idea of a player run economy, and curious to see how that influences the value of the starting components, which are the 4 Rs. And I think that craftable or resource materials, there's going to be something like a total of 20. I don't know if that's like the exact number for Scream version 0, but I heard it was something. I seem to recall it was something like that. I'm just really excited that we're about to see a player run economy about to be kicked off. That's a big deal.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm totally excited for it. It's about time, with waiting around the metaverse. But this is what the context. This is the type of conversations happening in the Foundation room. So to your point, Siggy, definitely for anyone interested in this type of conversation or questions you have yourself, definitely Nitro Boost the Atlas main server, the Star Atlas main server. You could jump in and ask your own questions, and then potentially share it with us if you're a part of Rome or any other guild that you really want as far as your question to be heard. Yeah, we're more than welcome. You're more than welcome to share with us, and we can talk about it here. So, onwards. Is this part of? Okay, go ahead.
You don't need to pay to transition ships into Scream. You will be allotted some hangar space at inception. Then you can acquire more hangar space by spending loyalty points earned by completing. By the way, this is an old message, but I wanted to share this because it's relevant to all things we're saying. This is from back in May. Loyalty points earned by completing objectives of your faction. You will need to pay Atlas to upgrade hangar spaces to larger class ships. The cost to upgrade hangar spaces becomes the new revenue stream for the DAO. As I mentioned before, 100% of the hangar space upgrades in Atlas goes to the DAO. As R4 market moves to the player economy, players will be crafting the R4s for themselves and will be able to sell to other players who are focused more on fighting and less on crafting. Fighters will earn more of the Atlas emissions for completing faction objectives, but have a cost to players who are focused on crafting, thereby creating a circular economic loop for players who want to specialize in a specific activity, which, again, that's more the part that's exciting. I mean, there will be people that just want to create food, people that, just want to create fuel or toolkits or ammunition. And that's pretty cool that a person can focus on that and they become an active part of gameplay and the economy.
Yeah, it's always been quite a clean loop in their head, just fight, build, fight again. And the upgrade costs going to them, that's going to be a solid way, because people are just going to keep on adding more as they get more returns. So, and more players going to be entering as well. So it's going to be like a constant way for them to receive revenue.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm also curious to see what the early decisions will be of the DAO as a whole as to what they want to do with that revenue that's been accumulating. Because there's obviously no value in just sitting on it. The value of money today is worth more than it is tomorrow. So the question will become is, what will the DAO choose to do with that? Will they pay out to themselves? Will they sponsor a project? Will they want to create some development? Will they want to use it for marketing? Will they want to use it for some special program that educates to onboard new people? These are going to be some curious things. That what is the DAO going to do with its existing treasury that continues to build through Atlas applied towards hangar upgrades?
Yeah, I think we're going to be a part of that as far as answering that question as a community. So There will be proposals for sure for up for vote.
Is the number of 140 ships as a total? Is the number of 140 as total ships that will be in the game? To which Wagner replies, it is in the 140s. A ship or two has been added since inception with dedicated purposes, but you won't see a considerable increase from that amount, unless, of course, the DAO votes to have ATMA. What are we calling that? Atma?
I guess.
Yeah.
Atomata. Produce more models in the future. Just as a reminder, we will never introduce more inventory for ships sold through the GAO process. Future demand for existing ships will need to be satisfied by ship manufacturers through crafting, which is awesome, and it's the way it should be. Yeah.
So,
Go ahead, Ray.
No, I was going to say, so yeah, I love it, and it's going to be on our hands as a community and a player base to get this economy up and running. So we have a huge responsibility on our shoulders, because if no one plays, then what's going to happen?
Yeah. And then Buntius here says that possibly we have 11 damage types that we're configuring with. Countermeasures should generally match that. So when you think about gameplay, even like when lately I've been playing Stellaris, 11 different damage types, that's a lot of variables. Man, they are introducing a lot of variables of gameplay. Curious to what those will be, but that also means that it's not just a simple matter of you shoot with this weapon and it has the same impact across all ships. Certain hulls, probably by different manufacturing designs, are going to be probably better equipped to deal with certain types of damage type.
Yeah, this comment by Grist made me chuckle. Atma is going to be stolen for Elon Musk's kid name.
Right.
And if my count is correct with current ships, there's 39 out so far, so at least 100 more to go.
Wow, it's a lot of ships.
Yeah, it really makes me want the first ones to be that more valuable and harder to craft in game. I'd be quite annoyed if everyone has a Calico hero when you can't make them.
Right.
Yeah, and again, hopefully there's some Genesis type of thing assigned to these early ships that are when you see them, whether it's through skin or some additional functionality, something that gives them a buff. So when you see a ship in the future, even if it's 10 years out, like that's an OG ship. That would be pretty cool. And again, as we've already talked about, those numbers are going to decline just like Bitcoin. As people get their ships blown up in the high risk zone, it's going to be the same as someone that lost their hard drive in the dump.
Boating accident.
Boating accident. Those OG ships are going to start becoming more rare over time.
Oh, I gotta go buy me a boat just so I could prove that I was on one, or just
Right.
hang out with a friend. But yeah, so here we go, mustache again. In this, you reference modules specifically, but then make reference to having to build some component pieces. It seems when we build a bare bones ship, is it just the hull? Then we need to make the components like the power supply, warp drive, etc. Then do we also need to craft modules as well, or do the modules innately come with the hull? I am just trying to understand how it is broken down into components section and modules section on the marketplace. So Chipto chimes in and says, a hull is the empty platform with different predefined slots. You craft your hulls, components, and modules separately, then put them together. The hard points dictate what weapons can be attached. Players can choose to craft by some of the pieces or by a ship knitted out. So you have many options.
Yeah, that's interesting. It'd be like if you're going to be racing competitively, you're not going to, and you want like the best ship possible, then you would like splurge out for all the best accessories already with it. Or you could also be the type of person who wants to do everything themselves. And yeah, that's cool.
I think this is what's really going to get the economy going, is because of the the specific ships that people are going to want, either for cosmetic purposes, functionality, or for particular specific jobs for it, like for racing or for mining. So if you just buy a ship and use it the way it is, I guess you could stop there. But that's just the beginning of it.
Yeah, I guess it might be the fighters that will get destroyed first. If you have one of the low supply fighters, that could be quite valuable in future.
Well, you just mentioned racers. So in that case, let's say you have a racer that you choose to not utilize a lot of your component and module slots. Does that make your racer more nimble? Is it faster? Is it can it maneuver better than if it was fully loaded out? If you're in a long race, sprint across however far races go, does it use less resources if you have less loadout?
Yeah, and then I think about the planets and its atmospheres. So, are we racing in space all the time, or are we on planets that were made by the team or players themselves? And then, are there specific, weight classifications that you need? Because if that is the case, you want less weight, so less components, but just focusing on thruster power, right? And then the amount of gas you can hold. But then maybe your ship is not strong enough if there's going to be anyone trying to attack you while you're racing to then get the upper hand and get in front of you. So I don't know what the racing scene is going to look like, if on planets or just in space. But I guess that's far out. And if we are going to have any racing, it seems like it'll be not with Star Atlas, but maybe a different game up until we have something on the Real Engine 5. Who knows?
I would love to see like a future where there's an NFT chop shop where you can take the remaining parts of a Fimble air bike and an Opal and like hack something together. That would be pretty cool.
And it's all randomized, generated, right? So you pay your fee and you really won't know what you get. It's almost like breeding of axes or any other breeding type of mechanism. You could start breeding components and items that they'll let us, just to see what we can create as far as new products to sell on the market.
You got some of the horsepower of the Fimble air bike and the straightaways, but then some of the nimbleness of an Opal.
That would be cool.
So Moonmonger from Athea asks, I thought we would be able to build bare bones ships without modules and components with your said blueprints. Sounds like you need all the blueprints for the modules and right side at least to build that ship. Do you need all components, all the component blueprints to build a ship? And Shula replies, yup, so the ship's blueprint will let you craft the bare bone ship without modules. The module blueprints will let you craft modules for that ship, so once you combine all of them, you'll have a full ship with all its modules instead of the bare bones ship. For example, if you want to craft an X4 with its full set of modules, you'd need the X4 blueprint, the power supply, extra small, warp drive, extra small blueprint, ... So always take this with a grain of salt since it's subject to change.
So there's a couple things that he said here. It's like the module blueprints will let you craft the modules for that ship. So once you combine all of them, you have a full ship. But then it also says here that, instead of, okay, so you can craft a bare bone ship, or you can craft one. The same like when you go to a car dealership, you can get something fully loaded. It's got all the bells and whistles on it as a package, or you can get a bare bones. So it looks like you can craft them both ways.
Yeah, the car analogy works quite well for a lot of ship questions.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, a few quick questions. One, by Wind Splitter. When you say there will be a tech tree, will it be akin to World of Tanks, where you must unlock several modules before acquiring the full set of segments the ship will be built upon? And then Shula, I guess, is part of the team. I don't know if they changed the name, but I don't know who that is. Anyways, here's the answer. I can help answering number one and let Danny answer the others. So number one, again, this is down the road, so subject to change. There are two separate things to play at play here. One being the ship's blueprints and the blueprints for the modules. Those are the two separate things. So ship blueprints and blueprints for the modules. The tech tree will allow you to unlock blueprints for modules. These modules vary in size. You can see them now on the marketplace. So in order to unlock bigger modules of the same type, you'd have to advance deeper in the tech tree. Can't speak yet for how to unlock a ship's blueprint because that's still being fleshed out, although we have an idea of how it will look like. Continuing, you'd need the ship's blueprint plus all module blueprints of the right size in order to craft a ship. Most likely, this will be very hard to achieve for a single player and will require coordination with multiple players from your guild or even faction. Buntius also includes towards the number one, I guess. We have plans to make full. So we have plans to make full ship / component / module crafting easily done, so people don't just craft a bare bones hull that can't fly out of the gate. Although there would be an advanced mode for doing that, similar to PC building.
So my question that comes to mind for me here is the tech tree. So we're mixing a lot of language, and I don't know if that's the actual language that Star Atlas uses, but if it is, my question is this: within the tech tree, how do you unlock the tech tree? Is it based on experience, or is it based on loyalty point system? Because I've read somewhere many times that the types of ships that you have access to in the modules and components that you have access to for a specific faction or a specific ship manufacturer is tied to the loyalty that you've developed with that faction. So is that how is it loyalty then that unlocks the different levels of the tree that accesses the different blueprints for the ships?
I believe so, and I would think that so if you're mud, you can unlock all of the blueprints if it's like a Pierce ship, but if it's like one of the hybrids, and there's the minor and the major of the factions. So it's all depending on like what type of ship you want to build and what faction loyalty you have to that faction. So like the Visas, there's the Agrica, Pierce, all of these different variations where you can spend your time like trying to earn enough LP to get blueprints. And when you was reading that, you didn't know who Shula was, Ray. His name is Giancarlo Gioca, the tech lead and game design.
Cool.
Thanks. Yep, that's perfect for also the audience who might not know. Thanks for that.
Very cool. Very cool. Whoop. There we go.
And continuing with that, I guess so. Number two from Bone. I don't know if this is from.
It was number two from where was it? There was a couple of questions that were asked, and the second question is what they were addressing here.
Okay, so
this is about damage.
Yeah. So this is from the the Discord user. Buntia stated before there were 8 types of damage. Now there's actually 7. I assume it's ballistic, energy, thermal, explosive, corrosive, etc. Is there any info you can drop on this? So Buntius jumps in and says, Chip's team added some additional damage types while configuring for Scream. They're not going to all be available for Scream, but this is looking forward to when ship combat is available for Real Engine 5. Don't want to drop that info now until it's locked after the prototype stage. Then number 3.
Yeah.
Here.
So I was curious to see what they were going to say for the different types of damage type, and I think they might mention it at some point. But go ahead.
Yeah, you can't even if you threw a dart, at the wall, you might hit one of those that were mentioned. So number 3, does the figure of 140 correspond? And he's talking to the ships, talking about the ships, I guess. So does the figure of 140 ships correspond to all playable vehicles in the game, or does it exclude surface vehicles? And then the last question he has, finally, with regards to countering ambushes, as I'm sure there will be many. To give you an example, let's assume there's a supposedly lone high value asset, an R8 or a build it yourself pack light, and a hostile approaches it, demanding cargo. But said vessel emits a distress signal to its allies to come to its rescue. If you are able to loiter nearby in the FTL/Super Cruise, we can jump off and counter the pirates. This happens in Elite, but the other way around. In short, just as we can park a Tufa in an asteroid ring and shake down mineral miners for stealth alone, from stealth alone, will we be able to loiter the FTL and come crashing on points of interest from it, pirates, freighters? And is this Buntius's response as it's his pictures below?
Yes.
Okay, so he's responding to the third question, which was on the screen. Yes, all vehicles, including ground. So that's included in the 140.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yep, that's good to know. And then number 4, designs at the moment are to make warping fast, but the cooldown take a non-insignificant amount of time. If you're cooled and spalooned, then just jump to the distressed beacon.
So that's interesting. So it sounds like potentially at some point in the high risk zone, as long as you are in a situation where you're out and you're getting resources and you're gathering whatever, and someone comes up on you, they may not have enough time to fully destroy your ship before you can just warp out to a safe zone.
Yeah, I think FTL stands for faster than light.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what Google thinks, but it could be like a reference to a game we don't play. So,
right. And then apparently it happens in Elite. So, but the other way around, you're saying.
Yeah.
So, question: so if I form a fleet in Scream, do the resources for R count for the individual ships, or does everything count as fleet resources? And can I add more resources as cargo to balance the whole fleet for longer trips, or even if I got a few extra small ships in there? So can I take resources out of the cargo to supply extra small ships in longer trips, or do I need a station? How long will it take for a fleet to reach the medium risk zone, or can we warp there right away? And response is, ships in formed fleets share aggressive R4 capacity and consume from the same pooled resource. Yes, you can top off the fleet, and every ship in that fleet will enjoy extended trip duration.
Nice.
So the only difference is between what we do now and Score is that now our fleets in Score consist of all of the same ship, as where in Scream the fleet will be a mix and match of ships, but the aggregate of all of the supplies of R4 are shared in a pool across all of the ships.
Yeah, so one-click refuel, like pit stop is for the club right now, I believe.
Yeah.
And you're good to go.
So, talking about Scream, can we expect ship modules to be considered into the fleet maximum resource capacity? Yes.
There you go.
So Trooper asks, hi, I'm not sure if this is a question for any of them. I couldn't find any response about this. Sorry if this is already there. As many players have chosen their faction in an early stage and without much information about ship manufacturers or loyalty implications, right now I notice that many people would like to change their faction. Are you planning any mechanisms to do so in the short term without losing our achieved badges for staking our fleet? Maybe just before stream. What are your thoughts about this? And the response is unlikely to be possible at this stage, as those on-chain program deployed specifically with that functionality disabled. What I might suggest is waiting until the launch of Scream, claiming your LP rewards, and moving to a new wallet address with all of our assets. And starting from scratch, unfortunately, you would lose any account lock progression, really just the score badges on the transfer. We did make every effort to inform players that faction selection was permanent.
Blood in, blood out, bitches. Colors.
Yeah, I haven't had any ONIs asking if they can change faction. But, yeah, it's interesting. He says like more clearly than before there that the reward for staking right now is LP, and you'd be able to claim that all. So rather than like what I was guessing before, like crew, it would be just LP, which you could use towards blueprints in future when you want to create things.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So, which also is another interesting thought about the fact that when you choose a faction, that's no joke. That's your faction. You're in that faction, which is all the more reason that as Star Atlas starts working more closely with guilds and guilds become a part of the referral and recruiting mechanism into the Star Atlas community, it is a consideration. If a person is going to be playing Star Atlas, the while they may have a preference for the faction they're going to play in, I think the biggest consideration is who's the guild. What guild are they going to be affiliated with? And then to find out, is your guild in that faction? So therefore, are you joining a multi-faction guild, or are you choosing a guild that's only in one faction? And so for that reason, I would like to see a better collaboration between Star Atlas and the guilds, that people that are new to the community have that understanding before they make a decision that is difficult to reverse later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
That's it, man. That's what we've got for, and there was a lot, 30 slides almost, something like that, of all of the alpha dropped in
Yeah, this is the last one actually.
Oh, we do have one more. Cool.
So was there a question, or is this the continuation of the LP?
Yeah, it seems like it is talking about LP and unlocked.
Okay, so the question is up there on the top. LP rewards from badges won't be account wallet locked. So this is a question. Yeah, question mark. That's the question. Will the LP rewards from badges be locked or not? So Swagner replies, LP rewards are account locked, but depending on the item purchased with those rewards, they will not be. However, still some ongoing discussion about the extent of the LP store on pre-alpha release of Scream. If it ends up being exclusively hanger acquisition, then unfortunately that would be locked to the previous account. However, any Atlas claims for that first epoch would be transferable to a new wallet. And then I guess he continues to summarize the spaces. There were three key points in making the decision to reprice. Oh, so
no.
This is
okay. This is somehow it got here placed somewhere else. This is related to the conversation we were having earlier. Yeah.
Okay, so for that question of LP rewards from badges being locked or not, they are locked, and the caveat of it, yeah. So unfortunately, that would be locked to the previous account. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's how I looked at it. It's like getting reputation for one specific group of people. Meanwhile, if you go on another account, it's just going to be at 0 because you haven't interacted with them on that account.
Yeah.
Perfect. So,
Cool. Yeah, and I think these types of conversations are happening all the time. And since when I guess Jess compiled all of these, there's been a whole nother flood of information as far as questions and answered shared. So definitely jump in if you want to continue this yourself into the foundation room. The official Star Atlas server needs to be nitro boosted, and we'll see what we can compile as the week by week play it goes by, and we can maybe continue this as a segment on the show. I think it's pretty interesting.
yeah, and if you don't want to do that, you can just wait for our next episode. So, yeah.
Voila.
Perfect. You guys should make sure to tune in on Thursday to our Copa broadcast with our commentary in between acts, or I'm not sure how to refer to it, but
Did you say Copa? You mean 426?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So the excitement is here. 420, 4 to 6. Just stay tuned. We're going to be live streaming it, and we might or might not have a reaction / discussion after the fact or during while announcements are being made. So stay tuned for that. We'll definitely have a recording.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
All right. So okay. So on that note, any last words? Do we have any thoughts, suggestions, inspirational advice?
No, just that I appreciate all the feedback and stuff we get from you guys that listen in with us live. It's one of the ways that we learn as well. And yeah, so I'm just super excited about all this stuff that we've been theory crafting about for quite some time is about to come to a head where we're actually going to see some big releases this month. Whether that's the DAO, whether that's Scream getting closer and whatever else that they have prepared, whether that's lore and some of the other things that they have going on. It's just we're being more immersed into this world that we've invested in for quite some time now and that we've been waiting for. So it's exciting, and it's awesome to have all of you here with us as we do this. So, well, smash all the things. I'm always going to say that. Smash the stuff,
Smash
those things.
Stuff.
Yeah.
And put the notification on if you want to be here at the start every week. It'll send you a message directly every time you go live.
Yep, and it helps with the growth of the channel. So, to all things good and healthy, like you said, smash the things, and we'll catch you next week on the Metaverse Nomads.
Peace out.
Atlas Miner, you were born to push the block in search of ore. And now it's time that you are gone. So farewell, Atlas Miner. And farewell, Mud and ONI too. Who's the sector same to you? The pirate bastards ran him through. So farewell, Atlas Miner. They promised you a diamond mine, but I'll be damned, it's hard to find. I hope there's justice for their crimes. So farewell, Atlas Miner. And farewell, friend, don't take it hard. Getting killed ain't all that bad. They'll treat you well in the repair yard. So farewell, Atlas Miner.